Chapter 1814. It was rare for such a dramatic scene to happen in a real chase scene. Even in the circus's past performances, it was quite rare. In the circus troupe's lounge, the dancer, Aaliyah, was completely amused by the scene in front of her. Ha! Today's performance is more exciting than the previous ones. What an interesting group of young people. Speaking of which, this pocket watch is your masterpiece, right? Baggins. This actor is about to explode mentally. The black and white clown replied with a smile. Aha! Dramatic elements are essential in literary creation. As for us, the circus doesn't need trash. If you can't even control such variables, it's better to die early. However, this guy isn't an actor himself. His poor performance should be deliberately arranged by the art director. This way, the variability of the performance can be maximized so that no one can guess the ending. That's right. Although the pocket watch is my work, the effect isn't that good. A large part of the reason is because of the holder himself. This person is a little interesting. If he has luck and can survive in the end, I will consider grooming him well. Perhaps he can become an important assistant of mine. The black and white clown's interest in the stage play was originally focused on Han Dong, but now there was an additional person. His interest made him reveal an even more exaggerated expression of joy and sadness. One face was twitching with laughter, while the other was crying bitterly. Stage play. Between the mansions, this sudden change stunned Han Dong and the other two. At the same time, they tilted their heads to look up. They saw the actor with a twisted expression and an explosive mentality standing at the staircase on the second floor. This isn't acting anymore? Is he going to chase and kill directly? It made Han Dong a little confused. In his impression, although the actor didn't meet the standards of the circus, he still had some skills. It wasn't to the extent that he would chase after him with his real body before he had a huge advantage. However, since there was such a good opportunity in front of him, how could he waste it? Woof, kill him. Han Dong had already rushed out at the first moment. Miss Firma followed at the same speed. The chef first put down the young master in his arms, then rushed forward and jumped with all his strength. Pa! His thick palm firmly grasped the handrail on the second floor, and without using the stairs, he directly jumped over the vertical drop of more than 5 meters. However, head chef Cliff didn't take any further action. He just stood quietly in the passageway. In just a few seconds after he climbed up to the second floor, there was no one in the corridor in front of him. The actor had already escaped. It was only when he climbed up to the second floor that he vaguely saw an actor with 6 legs that looked like a centipede crawling backward. His speed was faster than everyone else. Even Han Dong had no intention of chasing after them. He only focused on the automatic map. As expected, after absorbing the Baron was absorbed. This guy's body had undergone further changes. Combined with the appendage structure brought by the old butler, he had now grown an additional 6 appendages. With his familiarity with the mansion, if he wants to escape, we won't be able to catch him. If he wanted to deal with this guy, he had to find a way to seal him in the area. The maximum range of the automatic map is about 15 meters. Once a living being exceeds this range, it will disappear. Miss Firma was frightened by the strange scene of the actor's escape. We have to get rid of him as soon as possible. If we let him absorb the audience again, I'm afraid we won't be able to deal with him even if we work together. Mr. Han, do you have any plans? For example, lead him to a secret room. The success rate of baiting him is very low. After all, the actor is more familiar with this mansion than any of us. He will never take the initiative to go to a secret room with no escape. But if we can find the mysterious basement, maybe things will turn around. Let's ask the young master, who suddenly appeared. Maybe we can get some important information. The head chef didn't participate in the conversation. He just stood silently at the stairs to prevent the actor from coming back to launch a surprise attack. From time to time, he would reach out and touch the stitched pig head on his waist. Just as Miss Firma and the dog played by Han Dong walked down the stairs together and were about to ask about the young master, the smell of urine hit them head-on. That's right. Gracie, the actor who played the young master, had reached his limit after experiencing a thrilling escape. When he noticed the terrifying human dog transformed by Han Dong and recalled the black shadow he saw outside the window, he broke through his limit and directly peed. He didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, he felt extremely comfortable. Han Dong was bewildered by this scene. For a moment, he couldn't tell whether the guy in front of him was acting or was really timid. Logically speaking, the audience who could come to the circus must be something. It was impossible for them to be so timid. Although peeing his pants was in line with the characteristics of the young master, there was no need to act like this. Making himself smelly would also affect his actions. However, after some communication, Han Dong came to a fairly certain conclusion. This person was a pure hooligan, and the dramatic scene just now was most likely related to the prop. However, due to the plot of the stage play, they couldn't drive the young master out of the team, nor could they directly snatch the pocket watch. The eldest daughter, played by Firma, kindly said, "Brother, it's very dangerous outside now. How about you go back to your room and hide?" No, I want to stay with my sister." Not only did this guy not accept the idea of leaving the team, but he also hugged Firma's slender waist tightly. It felt like the liquid in his crotch was stained. If it weren't for the stage play, Firma might have directly stabbed a dagger into this person's head. Han Dong, who was silently observing from the side, made a decision and projected it to Miss Firma. This kind of guy must treat us as a life-saving straw. It's basically impossible to get rid of him on the basis of the performance. In that case, use him as bait. When the time comes, if he accidentally dies, you'll have to cry more sadly. Okay, I'll bear with it. At this moment, the chef guarding the stairwell suddenly moved, but in the end, he retracted his arm. A thin young man with messy hair, covering his face, crawled out of the darkness. It was the cunning Mr. Voss cat that he had met by chance earlier. Or rather, since he met the young lady and the dog on the second floor, he had been quietly following and observing in the dark. After seeing Han Dong and the others let the chef join the team through a special screening criteria, and after his performance in front of the actors just now, he seemed to want to join this team. The reason why he could hide perfectly was because of the cat's prop, perfect meat cushion. It was a prop similar to a latex sticker that could be used as long as it was stuck between the palms and the soles of the feet. Effect: eliminate all sounds caused by movements, and, at the same time, increase the mobility of the individual to a certain extent. He knew very well that Han Dong had a set of review criteria and would not let anyone join casually. So he used his claws to dig out a plan view of a room on the ground. The bird's eye view not only depicted the situation of the room, but also showed the secret door in the room. Did this guy follow the actor before? Is the quality of this year's participants so high? Chapter 1815. Slime Mr. Voss. The actor was a feline, and his name was actually Voss. He had a rather secretive identity and belonged to the World Federation's most secretive organization, the Dark Beast Organization. Every member only had an independent paper file, which was kept in the hands of a trusted middleman for identity restoration after the mission. Little Voss had shown amazing talents in assassination, tracking, and mimicry since he was young. He joined the organization at the age of 16 and carried out various espionage, assassination, and undercover operations. But not long ago, his most trusted middleman was killed, and his identity information disappeared. Just as he was about to lose all hope, a flyer appeared at the crossroads and led him here. Little Voss had no other distracting thoughts and treated this unexpected journey as an important turning point in his destiny. Han Dong was surprised that this person could follow the actor and find the secret door to the basement. But once he did, it couldn't be used as a certification for him to join the team. The actor's disguise is quite realistic. Are you sure you won't be affected? Only you can do this kind of visual communication, right? During the cooperation with you, I'll only listen to the information transmitted by my retina. Also, I won't take the initiative to participate in the battle unless it's necessary. I'm mainly responsible for detection and tracking. Okay, after a simple sharing of information, Han Dong could see that this Mr. Voss was very capable, but at the same time, It was difficult to cooperate with him. He almost completely hid himself and didn't want others to spy on him. In any case, the information of the secret door was too crucial. Han Dong continued to communicate with Voss. Next, there's a more dangerous mission for you. The actor who escaped just now is likely to continue searching for prey in other areas. After all, other than us, there are 3 people who are alone: the second girl, the scheming maid, and the nanny. We'll use these 3 as the center point to continue searching for the actor's location. You need to go through the secret door alone and take the elevator to the basement. Bring me the detailed structure of the basement. It's too dangerous for me to go alone. If there are surveillance cameras or alarms in the basement, once the actor comes back and blocks the only elevator exit, I'll definitely die. I need someone to go with me. Han Dong nodded. Choose one. Mr. Voss raised his padded palm and pointed at Miss Firma, who played the role of the eldest girl. The head chef is too big and will be easily exposed. You need to lead a team to search for him. Let her come with me. Judging from her figure, she should be the same type as me. I can smell the scent of the same industry from her. Indeed, as a Volpera, Miss Firma's nature was also an assassin, but she had never had a partner or someone she could trust. Most of her clansmen had been sold, and she had always lived in disguise and killing. After more than an hour of cooperation, in fact, Firma had developed a sense of dependence from the bottom of her heart. She had never felt that she didn't need to make decisions. Someone else had arranged everything properly and even analyzed it more thoroughly than her. However, considering the importance of the plan, Firma nodded. That was it. The head chef, the dog, and the young master formed a team and searched for traces of the actors in the mansion. At the same time, they contacted the remaining 3 family members. Young Mistress and the cat formed a temporary second team and headed to the Dark Clan. As Mr. Voss touched a featureless brick on the wall, an old metal elevator appeared in front of him. There really is a secret passage. While Miss Firma's eyes widened, she also held the dagger tightly in her hand and adjusted it to dagger mode. In addition to the buttons with the numbers 1 and 2 written on them, there was also a nameless button deeper in the elevator. Rumble. The gears turned, and the old elevator slowly moved toward the depths. Although Firma's expression didn't look very nervous, she was already sweating in her heart. The moment the elevator opened, there were no alarms, no terrifying zombies or monsters attacking them. What greeted her eyes was only an area with burning red candles. Mr. Voss had already stepped out of the elevator and began to search the underground area. What a scheming maid! She was a relatively special member of the family. In the stage script, this maid didn't really come here to be a nanny, but came for money. Although her lounge was located on the 2nd floor, there was a movable floor hidden under the carpet in the lounge that could reach the utility room on the 1st floor. In other words, the maid could freely pass through the upper and lower floors. The security could be said to be quite high. At the same time, she also had a special item, lockpick. It looked like a thin iron wire, and the effect was very simple. It can automatically match all the locks in the mansion. It can be both unlocked and locked. Once locked, the door can't be opened normally except for the lockpick. It can only be destroyed by brute force. The reason she wanted to leave the mansion was different from the others. There was no need to ensure the safety of the family members. As long as she stole enough gold, silver, and jewelry, she could slip away directly. After that, she could even exchange them for physical rewards at the circus. Currently, the actress was a woman with snake attributes: Hysel, agile, cold-blooded, and highly poisonous. Before exploring the mansion, she found a small knife from a secret compartment on the bedside table and smeared the toxin in her body evenly on the blade. This innate neurotoxin could kill an adult in 3 seconds. The area around the 1st and 2nd floors has been searched. It's time to expand the search area. If possible, try to meet up with the others and pretend to cooperate to get some information before stealing the jewelry. Just as she was expanding the search on the 2nd floor, she hadn't gone too far. In the maze-like corridors of the mansion, a creature that was crawling with 6 legs and 2 hands suddenly flashed across the intersection in front of him. It was moving at an amazing speed. What the hell? The maid was so scared that she didn't dare to confront it head-on and immediately fled to the room. Although she wasn't sure if the other party had seen her, to be safe, she went back to the room and locked it. Click! Once the lockpick was locked, the door had to be destroyed to enter. At this time, the maid had moved the floor, jumped to the utility room on the first floor, and moved the floor back to its original position. Waiting. Once the sound of the door being destroyed came from above, she would escape directly from the first floor. About 5 minutes passed. Knock, knock, knock. There was a gentle knock on the door upstairs, not the sound of the door being broken. At the same time, there was an old voice. Miss Rhea, the name of the maid in the show. I am the butler. I have something very urgent to report to you. At present, a crawling monster has sneaked into the mansion, and Baron Holly, who came to visit, is missing. For safety's sake, I have now met up with Miss Rhea, the head chef, and the young master, and I hope you can join our team. Havely didn't trust him. She instinctively doubted the butler's identity. After all, a monster just happened to pass by on the second floor. The butler's appearance was too coincidental. But just as she was doubting, there was a strange sound of footsteps outside the utility room on the first floor where she was currently at. She quietly stuck to the door and peeped through the keyhole outside the corridor. The scene in front of her eyes frightened her, and she took a big step back and hurriedly held her breath. Because the keyhole's visibility was extremely limited, all she could see was a human-faced dog dripping saliva, and a butcher wearing a black apron with an extraordinary physique and even a bloody pig's head hanging on his waist. Because of the keyhole's limitation, she couldn't see the butcher's upper body, let alone his appearance. Subconsciously, she had already imagined a murderer wearing a steel mask. At the same time, the young master's thin body was completely blocked on the other side of the butcher. The frightened Havely slowly returned to the second floor, inclined to believe the butler, who reported the dangerous situation at the door and tried to persuade her to join the team. Click! She unlocked the door and slowly opened it a crack. Before she could see the butler's appearance, several thin wires had already shot into her eyeballs and connected to her brain. Chapter 1816. So, this is the basement where the actors obtain their abilities. The underground area did not have the complex maze-like structure of the mansion. When the elevator came down, it faced a straight path. The wall lamps on both sides were filled with skulls with red candles. The audience who had been beheaded here continued to display their remaining value even after death. After passing through the passage, they arrived at the sacrificial area in the basement. It was a spacious hexagonal room with an area of about 200 square meters. There were 6 such passages and elevators, each leading to different areas of the mansion. This made it easier for the actors to bring their prey to the basement for the sacrificial ceremony. 1. There was a huge wardrobe made of ancient wood by the sidewall. Large amounts of blood stains of different ages were left at the corners of the wardrobe or seeped through the cracks of the door. 2. In the middle of the room stood 10 demons holding bowls. 3. A huge stone heart hung in the middle of the room. The blood vessels on the surface of the heart were connected to each demon statue. The most terrifying thing was, the headless bodies of the old butler and Baron Holly were stuck on the horns of 2 of the demon statues. Their blood had already dried up. When the 2 saw the scene in front of them, the first thing they thought of was to destroy the statues. However, destroying the statues was not easy at all. Random destruction could trigger a trap or alarm. Moreover, these statues were not made of ordinary stone. The surface of the statues was overflowing with a strange scarlet luster. It was basically impossible for an ordinary person to destroy them. Even if they found a tool like a chisel, they would not be able to destroy them in a short period of time. Once the actors were attracted, they would be dead. The investigation was still the priority. Miss Firma carefully observed these demon statues. She seemed to have a certain understanding of sacrificial ceremonies. Mr. Voss walked slowly around the wall like a cat. He tried his best to memorize the details of the scene in his mind. He tried his best to convey a 100% perfect view of the scene to Han Dong. After that, he could do whatever he wanted. Miss Firma walked around the statue and stared at the stone heart. She suddenly remembered something that happened a long time ago. I seem to have seen these ceremonies before. It should be more than 10 years ago when I followed the smugglers to the stronghold. A group of participants of fate met at the stronghold. The group of smugglers was forced to fight against this group of unknown people. At that time, I was hiding in the dark. At the end of the battle, although this group of participants killed all the smugglers, they were almost exhausted and seriously injured. Just as they were resting and recuperating, one of the sorcerers in the group suddenly attacked his companions, depriving them of their mobility and using the smugglers' corpses to construct a demonic altar. He hung his companions one by one on the skeletons of demon statues and used some kind of sacrificial ritual to absorb their abilities. It should be similar. He would be able to directly absorb the other party's characteristics, abilities, and even fate comprehension, greatly reducing his own cultivation time. Although it is extremely evil, this sacrificial ritual is truly shocking. At this moment, meow, a cat's meow, interrupted her memories. Although Mr. Worth couldn't communicate with her, his sharp eyes told her everything. Someone was coming. When they wanted to escape from the basement through other passages, they found that the doors of all the passages were locked. It seemed that they had come to the underground area with the actor. The other passages would be closed to ensure that no one would disturb them during the sacrifice. Helpless, the two of them could only hide in the wardrobe set up on the sidewall. When they opened the wardrobe, a strong, rotten smell hit them in the face. Hanging inside were headless corpses, which belonged to the poor audience members who had been sacrificed in previous performances. Due to the different years, some of them were still in a bloated and rotten state, and some had already turned into white bones. Coupled with the fact that they had been fermenting in the sealed wardrobe for years and decades, one could imagine the smell inside. But the two of them had seen all kinds of scenes, so they could barely hold it in. However, the wardrobe was full of corpses, and the space was very limited. If the two of them hid in the same wardrobe at the same time, there was a high chance that they would be discovered. Mr. Worth had to move to another wardrobe as fast as he could. Click! The door closed. Through the gap of the wardrobe door, they could barely see the general situation in the sacrificial area. The only thing they needed to do now was to be quiet and pray that the actors would not check the wardrobe. Based on the current situation, the actors would not waste time checking the wardrobes where the corpses were stored. The demon-hunting team, formed by Han Dong, had already made him feel threatened. There were only 2 audience members left, so he had to seize the time to gain as much power as possible. Is that the nanny? Looking from Firma's perspective, the actor quickly dragged a woman and hung her directly on the devil's long horn. The severe pain woke the nanny up, but unfortunately, her eyeballs had been destroyed. She could only wave the poisoned dagger in the air and scream in pain. Such a scream did not make Firma feel uncomfortable. Instead, it made her very happy. The louder the scream, the less likely she would be discovered, until the blood filled the bowl and the container. Whoosh! The head fell to the ground. Firma just looked at all this silently, hoping that the actor would leave quickly. At this moment, a strange scene happened. When the actor Matthew drank the blood, thump! A loud heartbeat was heard throughout the basement. This also reminded Firma of the specific details of the past. She had also heard a similar heartbeat, but she had already escaped and did not see the subsequent process. Currently, the actor Matthew was in a state of tensed-up body. The prominent blood vessels on the surface of his body were clearly visible. The venom from the nanny was being absorbed and absorbed by him. Blood slowly oozed out from the left side of his chest. A heart with a mouth structure actually took the initiative to drill out. Upon closer inspection, the blood vessels were like limbs of the heart, supporting the heart to crawl out of the actor's body. The heart that came to the outside world began to breathe regularly, receiving the nutritious blood delivered to it. It seemed to be the real core of the absorption ability. Mr. Han's guess was right. This guy's weakness is the heart, or even the main body is the heart. The actor is just a shell, and the heart is the controller? No, they seem to be still talking, just when Firma wanted to hear the conversation between the two. The protruding heart suddenly stopped talking. An eye grew on the surface and stared at the wardrobe where Firma was. The actor Matthew also turned his head. Why? I didn't make any sound. Firma was ready to fight to the death. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, the actor came to the wardrobe and stopped for about 3 seconds. When he was about to reach out to open the door, his face suddenly changed. It seemed that something urgent had happened, and he quickly left the basement. Chapter 1817. Click, click, click. The old elevator opened in a study compartment. Mr. Voss and the still shaken Firma walked out from inside. Since they couldn't communicate through words, they could only find a way to meet up with Han Dong and the others. Before they split up, Han Dong told them the general search area. Both of them were experienced killers, and with Mr. Voss's sensing ability, they met up with the team in 10 minutes. At this time, there was one more person in the team. The second girl, Miss Moose, was played by a gentle girl wearing round-rimmed glasses. She was a mage, and under the restriction of the truth, she could only release a slight flame. It was equivalent to the strength of 5 lighters. She wasn't very strong, but this kind of body with natural magic power must not fall into the hands of an actor. Once absorbed, the actor would gain the ability to control fire. With the actor's fusion of physical characteristics, it was very likely to exert the real magic effect. As for the second girl's prop, it was called Mary Lice Pen, which was set in the script as an important souvenir given to her by her teacher at the college where she was studying. Effect: the pen can draw living small animals, which can be controlled by the user. According to the size of the small animal, the amount of ink consumed is different. Once it is consumed, the pen will lose its function. The range of the small animal's activity and duration are also proportional to the amount of ink consumed. It was a useful item in the early stages and could be used for absolutely safe environmental exploration. If there was enough ink in the later stages, it could even draw a hound or a hungry wolf as a guardian beast. Han Dong didn't have any special requirements for the second girl. He only asked her to follow the team and act as a torch at most. Mr. Voss had already imprinted a bird's-eye view of the basement on the ground with his claws in a short time. At the same time, he visually transmitted what he saw and heard in the basement to Han Dong. Han Dong summarized all the information and muttered, "The audience suspected to be nannies or maids have been killed, and now there's only one person left who hasn't joined us. The main body of the heart and the structure of the basement have been figured out." Miss Firma asked, "Should we go find the last person?" "No need. If we go find them, the actors are likely to find them before us and take them to the basement for ability capture." Now that he had figured out the overall situation, it was time to bring this stage play to the final scene. Everyone, head to the basement. Even if he catches the last person, he will need to sacrifice them in the basement. As long as we guard the basement, we will be able to stop and end everything. Everyone, get ready for battle. Use my visual communication as the only mode of communication. These words ignited everyone's fighting spirit. Of course, Gracie, who played the role of young master, was excluded. When he heard that he had to fight with the actor who had thin stitches all over his body, his calves began to tremble again, just as everyone was heading to the basement. In the circus's main venue, there was a notification that only the audience could hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, Fright Night has reached its final act. Before this wonderful stage play comes to an end, we will conduct a guessing activity." They were guessing which side would win and who would survive. The odds for different survivors would be displayed on the screen. We don't have any mandatory requirements here. Everyone can participate in the bet unconditionally. You can also bet your Black Tower points or your life. It is suggested that everyone bet on your life. Once you win, you will get an extra life, which can be used as collateral in the subsequent shows. We are also here to kindly remind everyone that the excitement of the subsequent shows will definitely not be lower than what you have seen so far, so we hope you can be bolder. As soon as these words came out, the audience fell into silence. Indeed, if this continued, who knew how many people would die? They also saw the play in front of them very clearly and had their own definitions of each participant in their hearts. If they could win an extra life, the subsequent shows would be much easier. In the end, about 60% of the audience gambled with their lives. However, the results of the bets were very different. Among them, the number of people who bet on the head chef being able to survive was the highest. The second most bet was on the actor. After all, the actor's performance in the stage play was somewhat unsatisfactory and had made more than one mistake. The number of bets on the loyal dog played by Han Dong was only ranked third. At the same time, the circus members were also carrying out gambling guesses internally. However, they excluded the actors and made individual guesses for the audience participants, with a mysterious magician as the banker. The dancer Aaliyah made the decision first. I bet on the loyal dog with 10 coins. This guy is more interesting than I thought. He can actually form such a team and force the actor into such a situation. The lighting technician Anus also bet. I bet on the head chef with 5 coins. This person is not simple. He should be a hidden powerhouse in the current world. It was such a coincidence that he was chosen by the actor. Most of the votes were on the head chef, the dog, and a few on the cat. Finally, it was the clown's turn. I bet 30 coins on the young master. I like this guy very much. How far can good luck take him? 30 coins was not a small number. This was the circus's gold coins, which could be used to exchange for special materials and opportunities. Only the clown would make such a crazy bet. At this moment, there was a burst of light in the dark lounge. The butler with the candlestick slowly walked over and took out some gold coins. I bet 20 coins on Mr. Han. The black and white clown said with a smiling face. The butler is really in the mood. Instead of cleaning the circus, he actually came here to gamble with us? The butler did not answer. He just quietly enjoyed the final scene of the stage play. Everyone had arrived at the basement room with the devil statue. Throughout the history of the circus, there were no more than 10 times that the audience could force the actors to such an extent. About 20 minutes passed. As the footsteps gradually approached, everyone was ready for battle. The young master hid behind the head chef and focused their eyes on the entrance of the passage. However, the person who walked out of the passage was not an actor. Instead, it was the last nanny, a middle-aged woman with a big belly. Before Han Dong and the others could speak, the nanny spoke first. Have you all found the basement? That's great. As long as we stay here, we can end this show. As the nanny spoke, she approached the crowd. At this moment, a message appeared in everyone's retina. Do not approach this woman. The reason was simple. Han Dong, who was spying from the side, had already discovered that the nanny's head was connected to a thin, almost transparent wire. The other party seemed to have realized something and rushed forward crazily. Whoosh! The dagger in the eldest daughter's hand was thrown out and directly inserted into the nanny's knee. The special effect completely destroyed the knee, forcing the nanny to kneel on the ground. But she showed an excited expression. It seemed that the distance was enough. She was basically close to the center of the room. Her belly suddenly swelled. Some kind of self-explosion characteristic that belonged to her was activated. And in her body, there was a poison specially prepared by the actor in advance, and it exploded together with her. Boom! At the same time, flesh and blood splattered. A green poisonous fog filled the room. Although everyone covered their mouths and noses at the first moment, they could clearly feel the burning sensation on their skin. The explosion was mainly for the poisonous fog effect. It could not only transmit the poison, but also reduce the visibility of the current area. A terrifying figure mixed with the poisonous fog slowly crawled in. Chapter 1818. Although the actor had only completed the sacrifice of 3 people so far, but the ability he got from it was quite good. Old Butler gave him the structure of appendages, greatly increasing his movement speed. Baron Holly gave him biological modification and multiplier nerves, which greatly improved his reaction speed and physical activity. At the same time, he could split more appendages. Scheming Maid gave him the characteristics of toxins. With biological modification, he could create various types of toxins in his body, and he was also immune to toxins. The 3 abilities complemented each other, and the actor Matthew was completely different from the beginning. Although it was much worse than the complete absorption shown in the previous stage play, This level was enough for the actor to complete the final act. Controlling the nanny, he used her explosive characteristics to spread the strong poisonous fog throughout the entire underground area. This special poisonous fog effect would last for at least 5 minutes. Due to the stimulation of the poisonous fog, it was difficult to even open one's eyes. Woof woof. At the moment of the explosion, Han Dong immediately barked so that everyone could find the sound and gather around him. Even if he would burn his throat because of inhaling the poisonous fog, he didn't care at all. Not long after Han Dong barked, the same barking came from the other end of the basement. Naturally, it was imitated by the actor. However, the actor didn't know that Han Dong had opened a small cheating device. The barking was just a superficial message. Even if everyone closed their eyes, visual communication could still be carried out normally. The text had been conveyed immediately, allowing everyone to converge in the right direction. However, if he did this, the cheating would be too obvious. There were clearly 2 dogs in the underground area making the same barking. How could they all gather in the right direction when their vision was severely limited? Therefore, Han Dong sent a different message to young master, asking him to go in the direction of the actor. This way, everything would look normal on the surface and prevent the cheating from being exposed. At the same time, he could take the opportunity to get rid of a guy who was dragging him down. Mr. Voss was the first to approach because he was not far from Han Dong. At the same time, he also helped to make a cat's cry. When everyone slowly gathered, young master, who was supposed to go in another direction, also gathered around. This guy had inhaled too much poisonous gas, and his whole person was delirious. He neither followed the guidance of the visual information nor listened to the barking of the dogs. It was just that he had fallen into a state of deep fear and severe fear. He walked back to the group in a daze. This time, it was Han Dong's turn to be infuriated. However, Mr. Voss was very smart. He was the first to return to Han Dong's side and also meowed. The double meowing allowed the other team members to identify the correct direction. He could barely explain why everyone had returned to the team. Otherwise, his trump card, the demonic eye, might have been exposed ahead of time. When everyone had gathered, they realized that one person was missing. The second female actor, Miss Musy, who was born with the fire attribute, failed to return to the team. Her physique was originally worse than everyone else, and she might have been taken away by the actors while following the information. Everyone, form a circle and prepare for the attack from the actors. Missy, dog, head chef, cat, young master, young master, young master, young master, dog, head chef, cat, and young master, who was screaming because of the poisonous fog, tried their best to stay together. Since the poisonous fog had yet to disperse, no one could open their eyes normally. Everything in front of them was hazy. Mr. Voss, who didn't want to participate in the battle, had no choice but to take out a few sharp blades and hold them between his fingers, ready to deal with any possible danger. Little Voss didn't know that he had been targeted by the actors as the next target. A few micron-sized thin lines had been shot from the poisonous fog, silently aiming at Mr. Voss's head. His eyes were limited, and he couldn't see the lines at all. His meaty pad could only sense the vibration of the ground, but he was completely unaware of his impending death. Just as the thin line was about to shoot into his brain, a thick and huge palm suddenly stretched out and firmly grabbed the thin line in the air. The calluses on the palm brought about the effect of a leather glove as it firmly caught the thin line. The attacker was the head chef, Mr. Cliff. At the time of the explosion, he had already put on the pig's head that he had stitched up with his own hands. His entire body exuded an extremely terrifying, murderous aura. This murderous aura wasn't a reflection of his ability or rank, but an attribute that came with the killer. Han Dong had seen it in Dry Town before. The guys from the Human Demon Club also had such a murderous aura. This head chef was a little different. He usually looked tall and fierce, but his overall appearance was the same as an ordinary person. Everything changed the moment he put on the pig's head. There was nothing special about the pig's head cover, but for the head chef, it was like a personality transformation tool. Once he put it on, He would remove the layers of restrictions in his heart and completely reveal his other personality and true nature. At the same time, the exquisite pig's head cover also helped to block the poisonous fog, which was why the head chef could grab the thin line. When he grabbed the thin line, he pulled it hard. Even if the thin line completely cut into his palm and blood flowed, the head chef's strength didn't weaken. The huge brute force pulled the actor off the ground. Even if the actor Matthew wanted to take the initiative to cut the thin line, his body that had already left the ground still flew toward the head chef. Pa! The head chef grabbed the actor's throat and lifted him in the air, before the actor could make any movements to struggle. Pa! The huge force had already crushed the cervical vertebra. It was the same as slaughtering ingredients on a daily basis. Then, the head chef pressed the actor's body heavily on the ground, like fixing an ingredient on a chopping board. Since he didn't have a kitchen knife with him, he could only raise his palm high. Pa! The next scene was extremely brutal, as if he was using the back of a knife to cut a white pig with many legs. First, he completed the beheading in an extremely crude way. Then, he inserted both hands into the white pig's chest, opened the pig's ribs, and pulled out the heart inside. Pa! The head chef crushed it. The moment the heart was crushed, everything quieted down. The actor's headless body no longer struggled and collapsed like a pile of rubble. At this moment, the poisonous fog also slowly dissipated, and the basement returned to its usual state. Dee-da-da-dee-da. The second female actor who was taken away during the explosion was already hung on the devil's long horn, and her head was nowhere to be seen. Although it was a pity, most of the people survived. Cough, cough, cough. Chef, you're so powerful. You actually killed the actor alone. That's great. We really survived. The actor who played the young master, Gracie, was also slightly awake at this time. When he saw that the actor was dead, he was very excited, but because of the poisonous fog, a lot of blisters had already grown on his body. Everyone also stared at the actor, who had almost turned into ashes. But they only felt slightly relieved, and there was still an indescribable strange feeling. It seemed that it had ended too quickly. Let's leave this damn place quickly. Gracie looked around the terrible scene in the basement, still trembling, and his bent body tightly hugged the head chef's thigh, determined not to separate before leaving the mansion. At this moment, something warm slid down his hand. When he focused, it was actually blood that slid down from the head chef's body. He originally thought that it was a superficial wound caused by the head chef's battle just now. But as he moved his gaze up, following the blood flow to the head chef's head, he saw that a dagger had been inserted into the head chef's ear at some point, completely piercing into the brain. Boom! The huge and strong body suddenly knelt down. The next second, the dagger was pulled out together with the brain matter, and it turned to stab the man-dog lying on the ground. Chapter 18-19. The head chef's death was so fast that no one could react at all. Being caught off guard was one of the reasons. Another reason was the extraordinary speed. The dagger was inserted into the head chef's brain almost instantly. Without the aid of his demonic eye, Han Dong was unable to see the entire process clearly. Boom! When the head chef's body fell to the ground, there was a slight vibration on the ground. Under the truth restriction, no matter how strong the body was, once the head was penetrated, it was impossible to survive. The person who did it was Miss Firma, who played the role of the eldest daughter. Or rather, the real actress. The real here started half an hour ago, when Miss Firma and Kitty came to the basement to investigate. They happened to meet the actor Matthew, who captured the maid, alive, and carried out an evil sacrificial ritual to seize her ability. Firma and little Voss hid in different closets. Although neither of them made any sound, their psychological states were completely different. Mr. Voss was completely uninterested in the sacrificial ritual. When he collected the relevant information about the underground area, he no longer cared about it and didn't peep at the specific sacrificial process. Miss Firma was different. Since she came to the basement, she had shown a strong interest in the demon sculptures and sacrificial rituals. She even hoped to get this special ability that could directly seize the destiny of others. When she hid in the closet and observed the whole sacrificial process, the evil thoughts in her heart continued to grow until this evil thought was detected by the heart. This was why the actor Matthew leaned toward the closet. When Matthew stood in front of the closet for 3 seconds, some kind of evil deal had been made. Firma replaced her heart with the actor's heart in Matthew's body and signed a deep agreement that required the soul to be offered. The original host Matthew had long been despised by the heart due to various mistakes. Firma was one of the targets that the heart was inclined to. After the heart exchange between the two, the original actor Matthew still retained his ability, but this ordinary heart could only support him for less than a day. Therefore, he was ready to die. Everything that followed was to pave the way for the new actor. Whoosh! The dagger pulled out the head chef's head. The next target turned to this second threat, identified by Miss Firma. The actor who played the loyal dog, the planner and the layout of the whole operation, Han Dong. The replacement of the heart brought more than just ability defense. His various bodily functions and endurance had increased greatly, as if he had been equipped with the latest powerful engine. In Firma's eyes, there was no pity for her companions. In other words, she had never treated anyone as her companions. All she wanted was to survive, and it would be even better if she could get some benefits on top of that. Whoosh! The dagger smeared with venom successfully pierced into the dog's body. Han Dong tilted his head and widened his eyes in disbelief. Boom! It fell to the ground, its body twitching incessantly, as if the venom had spread all over its body. No matter how he looked at it, it was already a dead dog. Seeing this, Miss Firma showed an expression of joy from the bottom of her heart. She even stretched on the spot. This feeling is simply too great. As long as I can get rid of both of you at the same time, the uneasy factor will be completely eliminated. Let me take my time to clean up the rest. Firma's expression had completely changed. Cold-blooded, excited, and even a little crazy. Her gaze fell on young master, and she said with disgust as she recalled how this cowardly fellow had gotten urine on her. How did a trashy character like you survive until now? Just looking at you makes me want to vomit. Whoosh! She directly threw the dagger in her hand. The dagger that was supposed to hit the head deviated from the expected path and stabbed into the ground beside the young master. The dagger is stained with that dog's blood. Plus, I was too agitated and my hand slipped. The dagger was a core attack tool. Seeing this, Mr. Voss, who was not far away, immediately went forward to snatch it. You want to snatch it? Firma grew 6 appendages from her lower body. She started at her maximum speed. She kicked Voss and sent him flying. However, there were also several sharp blades stuck in her body. They were the blades that Mr. Voss had thrown out when the two sides came into contact. 2 of them actually pierced in her chest and almost hurt her heart. You bastard! Firma pulled out the dagger from the ground and was about to chase after him to give him a fatal blow. Suddenly, a black shadow stood behind her. She could vaguely smell the stench of meat, and at the same time, it exuded a murderous aura. A sense of danger spread all over her body. Head chef, how is this possible? Although Firma was very shocked, she reacted instinctively at the first moment. With the help of her appendages, she circled her feet. With an extremely fast turn, she was ready to stab the dagger into the other party's brain again. However, before the dagger hit the target, there was the sound of bones breaking. Crack, if it was shown in slow motion. Firma's face was hit by some kind of fist. While it was concave, layers of spiral lines also appeared, similar to a roundhouse punch. Her cheekbone was shattered, and her entire body was sent flying by this punch. She crashed heavily into the wardrobe beside the wall and was in a sitting position. However, the strong support from her heart and the biological modification attribute made her quickly wake up and immediately look in front of her. This is... The head chef's body lay in the original place and did not resurrect. However, the apron on her body was gone. The individual who stood behind her and gave her a heavy punch was the dog that should have been completely dead. The evil dog, who had maintained a crawling state during the stage play, showed a standing posture for the first time. The long tail of its spine was dragging behind it. Its claws were clenched into slightly smoking fists. The butcher's apron was already on its body. Its mouth was still in a torn state, and its blood-red eyes were staring at her. Crack! The collar on its neck shattered and fell off. Hiss! The water in its body overflowed from its mouth like steam, and it said softly, "I originally planned to get a perfect performance score of 100 in the Fright Night stage play. Now it seems that I can only lower my performance score to achieve a good ending." As it said that, Han Dong walked towards Firma in a very strange, twisted posture, as if its body had no skeletal structure and was in a liquid state. Truth Seal could seal the ability. However, the physical moves that Han Dong learned from the floating corpse internal scripture and the purity training from the Fight Club would not be affected. I didn't expect the dog's prop to be able to avoid death once. Then, I'll just kill you again. Firma attributed her being hit just now to the other party's sneak attack. Full of confidence, she grabbed the dagger, switched to the short knife state, and met it at the fastest speed. There was no need to hit a vital point. As long as she could scratch the other party, the venom would invade, and the battle would soon end. But when the blade cut through Han Dong's body, there was a strange feeling as if it was cutting through flowing water. Han Dong spun more than 10 times in the air in the direction of the blade, perfectly dissipating the force, and with the help of the spinning speed, he punched Firma's heart. Puff! A large mouthful of blood spurted out, and Firma was sent flying again. What's going on? I clearly hit it just now. She resisted the surge of blood and continued to get up. It was the same situation again. She was sent flying by a punch again, and only Han Dong's clothes were torn. She was defeated again and again. Slowly, in her eyes, Han Dong had completely transcended the boundary between a dog and a human, turning into a twisted and indescribable terrifying creature, like a mass of gray colloidal mucus creeping over. At this moment, the most ancient emotion spread in Firma's heart. Fear. When she got up this time, she did not rush forward. Instead, she took a step back and immediately turned to escape from the basement. Han Dong was not in a hurry to chase after her. Instead, he smeared a drop of blood on his fist on the butcher's apron to achieve tracking and locking. Coupled with a 100% exploration of the map in his hand, he could clearly locate the exact location of Actor. She took the elevator back to the mansion. While walking in the passage, she rhythmically tapped the wooden wall with her fingers. Tick-tack, tick-tack. Time waits for no one. Miss Firma, I'm coming for you. Chapter 1820. The big reversal of the final scene made the audience exclaim in satisfaction. No one expected that the young man who chose the dog to be so secretive. However, the atmosphere in the circus members' lounge was a little strange. When Han Dong changed to a standing position and reversed the situation, the circus members were quite surprised. Some people even gave high praise to Han Dong's concealment. Some people even whispered, "This is a real actor." But when Han Dong unleashed the special ability of the item and chased after the enemies in the mansion leisurely while mimicking the strange sound of a clock, some of the members' expressions changed immediately. Until someone said a name, Pennywise? That's right. Even though Han Dong's appearance was completely different, the overall feeling conveyed was exactly the same as the former clowns. When he saw this scene, as the new clown, Baggins made a sad and happy expression as if he understood something. No wonder when you stepped into the circus, I could feel such a similar sense of homogeneity. This sense of homogeneity related to laughter should have made us love each other. But when I saw you, I had an instinctive feeling of disgust. So that's how it is. If you are related to that clown, everything makes sense. In the house, Miss Firma, who had 6 legs, was moving quickly. However, she couldn't raise her speed. From time to time, she had to support herself against the wall and press her chest with her other hand. There's something wrong with that dog. I should have thought of it from the beginning. Since he can convey information through vision, Is he really not limited by the truth seal? Poof. Because her chest had been attacked many times, the damage to her heart caused her to constantly vomit blood. Her overall condition was very bad and even continued to worsen. Victory is in front of me. I can live in a circus as a new actor and get better resources and the ability to strip and absorb the fate of others. I can't let anything go wrong here. That's right. Before Mr. Matthew died, he had hung the second girl on the devil statue and cut off her head. Her blood should have filled the stone bowl. If I go back to the basement now, I can complete the absorption ritual and my heart can be repaired. That guy should be tracking me in the mansion through the butcher's apron and the map. Let's do it. With a clear goal, Firmus slowly suppressed the fear in his heart. After deliberately wandering around the mansion a few times, he came to a secret room on the second floor and took the elevator back to the basement. She gripped the poisoned dagger tightly in her hand. Although she was very sure that Han Dong was chasing after her upstairs, it was also possible that Han Dong wasn't chasing after her and was instead staying here. He hid at the entrance of the passageway and secretly peeped at the situation inside. After confirming that there was no one in the sacrificial area and that the second daughter's blood was full, she immediately rushed over as fast as she could. Of course, she also looked around the wardrobe in case something terrible came out of it. Everything is safe. He picked up the stone bowl and drank the blood in one gulp. When she spread her arms, she tried to feel the effects of the ritual. After obtaining the second daughter's magical ability and using fresh blood to repair his heart, time passed second by second, but nothing happened. She also slowly realized that there was something wrong with the blood that remained in her mouth. It was very thin and didn't have the stickiness that blood should have. In addition to the fishy smell, it was mixed with a foul smell. If you carefully recalled the taste in your throat, it would even make you want to vomit. I knew you would come back. Miss Firma, how is it? Does the young master's virgin urine taste good? That incompetent guy almost peed in his pants again, so before I left the basement, I asked him to use the thing in his body effectively. Mix it in the bowl according to the ratio of 1 for a change. How does it taste? Han Dong was already standing at the entrance of the passageway that Firma had just passed through. Hearing his description, Firma directly retched and almost vomited. She didn't expect that everything was still in Han Dong's plan, and the fear that had just faded slowly came back to her heart. She didn't have a heart to fight at all when she was seriously injured, and her brain was trying to think of a way to survive. The young master and the cat are still alive. I only need to return to the mansion, and I still have a chance to win. Firma immediately fled in the opposite direction from Han Dong. Just when she came to the end of the passageway and wanted to take the elevator, she found that all the buttons above had failed, and even the chains used for traction were all jammed. Tick-tack, tick-tack. Han Dong rhythmically knocked on the wall and slowly walked to her. It's urgent, right? The elevator is the only tool that connects to the basement. It's not a good design. If it breaks down, wouldn't it be troublesome? I guess that you would definitely go back to the basement and find a way to continue the ceremony. So I pretended to chase you. But in fact, my main purpose of returning to the mansion was to destroy the elevator. This is all thanks to the information that Mr. Voss provided me. Finally, I just need to follow the elevator you took back to the basement. Leaving an intact elevator is convenient for me to return to the stage after finishing the performance. Now you have two choices. 1. Fight with me to the death, of course. You should know what the outcome will be. 2. This is also one of my suggestions. With that, Han Dong slightly bent his body and made a gesture of stabbing his heart. Even his facial expression was very realistic. Make your choice, Miss Firma. I believe that you are a decent person. At this moment, plop, Firma directly knelt down on the spot with tears in her eyes. Please let me go. Now you brought the cat and the young master out of the mansion, which can be considered a perfect performance of this play. If I survive, I will become a new actor. I promise to help you in private, and I will satisfy any request you have. Slap. Han Dong held his forehead with one hand and made a disappointed expression. So disappointing. Is it hard to change one's nature? With that, Han Dong slowly approached Firma. When the two were close, Firma immediately stabbed with the dagger in her hand. Swish! Blood splashed. The dagger hung in the air, less than a centimeter away from Han Dong. And in Han Dong's completely torn mouth, there was a heart full of scars. He didn't bite it to pieces. The curtain fell. The fire engulfed the mansion and burned it down. A dog and a cat escorted the young master and finally survived. Just as the stage returned to its original state and the three people thanked the audience. Bang! Bursts of gunshots came from different audience rooms. A total of 219 audience members lost their lives. Chapter 1821. As the gunshot ended, the venue immediately lit up with a corresponding number of spotlights and shone on the audience who lost their lives because of gambling. Sizzle. White smoke rose, and the corpses evaporated in a short time, leaving not even a trace of smell. In the eyes of the circus, these useless corpses didn't even have the value of being used as fertilizer. The actor of Young Master, Gracie, was almost executed by such a group shooting. He was so scared that he peed his pants again. Fortunately, he had drained all the residual liquid in his body in the basement. Littleworth no longer disguised as a cat. When he got up, he bowed slightly to Han Dong to thank him. However, he also secretly stared at the beating heart in Han Dong's hand. It was the main culprit of Fright Night. Unexpectedly, Han Dong, who was sewing up his face with needle and thread, suddenly turned his head and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I don't care about this level of heart. I just saved it and returned it to the circus." After Littleworth heard this, he immediately looked away. He thought that the next step would be the head of the troupe who would come on stage to comment and award the survivors of the stage play. Unexpectedly, a stranger slowly walked out from the darkness. He seemed to be a member of the circus. A middle-aged man wearing a white coat and loose pants, who looked like a doctor, slowly came to the front of the stage. He was middle-aged and didn't have much hair left. Not only that, his whole face was pale and his every movement seemed weak. His breathing was weak and rapid. It seemed that there was a huge defect in his heart, and he could suddenly die here at any time. He moved his feet and came in front of Han Dong. Cough, cough, cough. Thank you for your wonderful performance. The total duration of Fright Night this time is 6 hours and 30 minutes. The final score of the performance is 93 points, which is ranked second among all the previous stage performances. Your performance is the best in the entire play. The prizes from the circus will be distributed to your private rooms in a while. I'm Director Christian Vera. I'm very happy to work with you. Director? As soon as he finished speaking, the director lifted his white coat, thump, thump. For a moment, the sound of hearts beating at different frequencies echoed in the venue. Even Han Dong was slightly surprised by the scene in front of him. However, his expression did not change much, as if he had guessed something in advance. The director's body could be called the heart nest. His seemingly thin body was filled with blood and flesh sockets that were embedded with hearts. Each heart was unique and had a different beating frequency and shape. The heart that was used to perform Fright Night was only one of them, and it corresponded to the flesh groove on the left side of his waist. Actor Matthew wasn't a member of the circus from the very beginning. He could only be considered an odd-job worker or an assistant to the director. The entire stage play's setting, script, setting, and requirement for the actors were all the director's masterpiece. No matter who lived or died in the end, it had nothing to do with him. All he cared about was the effect of the play and the final score. Even if Miss Firma really killed Han Dong and became the final winner of the stage play, she would still be in the limelight. They were only given the opportunity to do odd jobs in the circus and had to rely on the director to survive. They were reduced to slaves that were worse than dogs. If she had known that this would be the outcome, she might have really stabbed the dagger into her heart and used death to seek relief. Han Dong didn't say much and returned the heart to the director. When the damaged heart was reattached to the body, the surface injuries quickly recovered and returned to the director's body's blood supply system. The stage play came to an end. When the director and Han Dong brushed past each other, he said in an extremely weak voice that only the two of them could hear, "Since you helped me retrieve the heart, I will keep the fact that you secretly used during the performance a secret for you. Mr. Clown, Baggins is more difficult to deal with than I am. I hope you're prepared." Han Dong just smiled and thought that this person was very interesting. He walked straight back to his seat in the first row, adjusted his seat to a 45-degree reclining position, and ate barbecue-flavored potato chips. Between the screens, the director didn't leave immediately. During the intermission after the end of the stage play, he dragged his seemingly weak body to the scorched mansion. About 5 minutes later, something lifted the wreckage of the building. A burly man wearing a pig head with a stitched-up pig head followed the director out of the underground area. A completely different black gold heart was placed in his cut chest. The chef's actor, Cliff, was selected as a special actor. From now on, he would work beside the director. He would be treated better than ordinary actors and would have more freedom and rights. Everyone could also guess that the show starring this pig head butcher would inevitably have a high mortality rate. Han Dong looked at the scene in front of him with gratification. Very good. The chef's talent is quite good. Even in the Human Demon Club in Dry Town, he can reach a relatively high level. To be able to live like this is at least a lot better than dying. When the director stepped down, a black fog completely covered the stage area. The wreckage of the mansion was completely submerged and disappeared. At the same time, 3 service staff wearing animal masks came to the seats of Han Dong and the others to give out the stage play rewards. What Han Dong received was a gold-plated gift box, which looked extraordinary. Even if it's packaged well, it should be just a small gift. After all, the stage play is just a part of the circus performance. The dog I played didn't get full marks for the real performance. When Han Dong opened the golden gift box, the thing in front of him made him frown slightly. A circus membership card with an eye imprinted on the back, exuding a black fog. Not far away, the actor of Young Master, Gracie, was also in the front row. When a service staff wearing an elk mask approached, he was so scared that he stood up abruptly, thinking that someone was coming to take his life. When a black gift box was delivered to his hand, he remembered that it was the reward he just won in the stage play. Thinking about it, his only contribution in the stage play seemed to be the urine at the end. The rest of his performance was simply unbearable. Even he himself didn't know why he was able to survive. My performance is not worthy of any reward at all. The circus might give me something sarcastic. For example, they might give me a pistol to commit suicide. Gracie was still very curious about what the gift was. When he opened the lid of the box, whoosh, 2 arms, one black and one white, stretched out at the same time and directly hugged his head, unable to break free. Immediately after, a black and white head that was half sad and half happy came out of the box and stuck in front of the frightened Gracie. Your luck is really good. Even in my experience, it could be ranked in the top 10. It's just that you're too timid, but this can be slowly taught. You don't have to participate in the rest of the show. Come with me. Without waiting for Gracie to agree, his whole body was directly pulled into the box by the clown and disappeared together with the black box. Chapter 1822. Han Dong didn't know that young master, Gracie, had been chosen by the clown. He was currently carefully observing the black card reward issued by the circus. He would look up at the stage every 4 seconds. 1. The material of the card was absolutely top grade, and it was a material that Han Dong had never seen before. It had a small particle feel to the touch, as if it was constructed from micron-scale dodecahedron particles. When observed from different angles, different particle surfaces would refract different lusters, mysterious and deep. It could even read a large amount of information from the card through a special information conversion mode. In other words, the card itself was a special hard disk that used special particles as a medium and refracted from different surfaces as an output port. 2. The particles that made up the black card were like burning coal, emitting black gas at all times. It seemed a little fancy, but in fact this black gas could effectively block external perception. Although Han Dong could use the magic eye to investigate, His eyes would feel obvious stinging pain after a long period of prying. There would even be similar particles growing between the eyeballs. If he wanted to remove them from the eyeballs, they would also spray out black juice, making it very difficult to repair. 3. On the back of the black card, through the fixed arrangement and refraction effect between the particles, it formed a certain eye imprint that represented the dark circus. When observed from different angles, the eye would appear in different states, and the shape of the pupil would also change. This black card represents some kind of identity in the circus, or some kind of membership card. It was directly given to me without any explanation. Was it intentional? Although I can decipher the black card through the magic eye, it would be exposed. Forget it. There should be an explanation after the subsequent performances or when all the performances are over. Han Dong could vaguely guess something and temporarily put the card in his pocket. While removing the stitches for the lacerated wound on his face, he carried out the spinal restoration process. He quietly waited for the next performance. Backstage, circus members' lounge, performance order. The circus didn't have any mandatory requirements for the order. It only required the members to complete a high-quality performance for 3 days. It didn't matter who appeared first or later. Everyone generally determined the order of appearance through drawing lots. For example, the dancer Aaliyah drew the relatively easy opening lot 1, and the director Christian drew the sequence 2. The next sequence 3 was Clown Baggins. When the stage play came to an end, the clowns suddenly turned to a dark corner of the resting area. There seemed to be a shadowy individual wearing a tall hat standing there. Not only did he look shadowy, but his entire body also gave off a dark aura. Mr. LeBlanc, I have something to discuss with you. How about we exchange the order of our performances? Under normal circumstances, with the clown's reputation in the circus, as well as his completely neutral and relatively flattering persona, the other members would agree to this request for the order of exchange. However, Mr. LeBlanc had drawn the closing ceremony. Moreover, the performance he had prepared today was very suitable for the closing performance. If he could finish it perfectly, he would receive additional rewards and holidays. Seeing that LeBlanc in the corner did not answer, the clown raised his head and opened his mouth as wide as possible. Whoosh. His entire arm entered his body from his throat in an extremely smooth manner. Crunch, 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 the sound of flesh being squeezed continuously came out from the clown's mouth. After a minute of searching and groping, he finally found an item that had been sealed for a long time in the depths of his body. He took it out along with blood vessels, crushed tissues, and accidentally crushed internal organs. After the clown licked the stains with his tongue, a rather exquisite ancient figurine appeared. Deal! A gloomy voice came from the corner. LeBlanc took off his tall hat and put his arm into the hat. Like a magic trick, the next second, he took out the ancient figurine and the clown's palm that was holding the figurine. Drip, 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 black and white blood kept dripping, and the clown's palm was completely cut off by the trick just now. LeBlanc pulled down the palm that had accidentally changed, put the figurine into his pocket first, and waved the clown's broken hand to greet him. Sorry, my magic is not mature enough. Let me reconnect it for you. Clown Baggins wasn't angry. Instead, he shook his arm generously. No need, I'll give you the palm as well. The next performance will start in 15 minutes. Mr. LeBlanc, hurry up and get ready to appear. I'm personally looking forward to your magic performance. Clown Baggins turned around. The left side of his face, white with black makeup, was crying very sadly. It seemed that the broken palm just now brought him a lot of pain. On the right side of his face, white with black makeup, a palm-like tongue protruded out of his mouth and gently stroked his left cheek to comfort him. He calmed his emotions and didn't want to lose control of the balance. It was a full half-hour interval. During this time, there were no lights and no one to host the performance. The venue was silent. No one knew what the third performance would be and how many poor audience members would be chosen to go on stage. It's here. Something doesn't feel right. There's no need to take the initiative to go on stage this time. He stared at the dark corner of the stage. Intuition told him that the next performer would be completely different from the previous two performers. The dancer and director could actually be labeled as good, but Han Dong could feel a strong sense of evil before the next performer appeared. There was no black fog, only a faint, dim light shining on the stage. A man wearing a tall hat and a black tuxedo walked barefoot onto the stage. His image had already frightened the audience, and they prayed that he wouldn't be chosen in the next competition. 1. The reason why he was barefoot and didn't wear shoes was that the soles of his feet had been twisted into a spiral cone and he walked in the form of a meat spike. 2. Many parts of the body were completely cut off. Ankles, knees, waist, wrists, and so on were connected with dense red flesh threads. Even his eyes were completely gouged out and replaced with flesh threads. Since he was sealed by the truth, it meant that these were his innate characteristics. This person was one of the top performers of the circus, the magician. After bowing politely to the audience, the magician began to take out large magic equipment from the tall hat room one by one, including a black wardrobe with strange runes drawn on it, a closed water tank filled with green liquid, and a human body dissection device that looked like an operating table with various cutting chainsaws and a guillotine that was similar to ancient executions. As various large props were placed on the stage, an atmosphere of death and fear filled the venue. Chapter 1823. Han Dong's heart skipped a beat as he stared at the props that magician took out. Many people will die, and it's very likely that it won't be as simple as death. If I'm chosen again, I might have to consider using my trump card, the Demon Eye. This kind of tool is comparable to a torture tool, and it's really unbearable to use it on an ordinary body. Han Dong prayed that he wouldn't be chosen again, but deep in his heart, he wanted to give it a try. In the end, he suppressed his desire with rationality and didn't raise his thin arm. After all, he still had to face the clown in his best condition. About 5 minutes later, click, a bright spotlight shone on magician, and he immediately entered his performance state. He raised the black top hat above his head and let go. Everyone thought that the hat would fall on his head. Who knew? The black top hat seemed to have broken free from magician's shackles. It was full of sawtooth teeth, and it turned into a devouring creature similar to a lamprey. When it fell, it directly devoured magician, just as everyone was sucking in a breath of cold air. Click. Another spotlight shone on the entrance of the main hall. Magician's real body had appeared out of nowhere, bowing to the audience once more. When he bowed, he realized that his right arm was missing, and there was a large piece of flesh missing from his waist. Seeing this, magician immediately reached into his black top hat and pulled out his right arm and some flesh from his waist and abdomen. He quickly attached them back to his body. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's Deadly Magic, presented by me, LeBron Crank. Since I don't have any assistants, this magnificent performance that I have prepared requires the help of the audience. Since I have strict requirements for the participants, I won't take the initiative to sign up. Instead, I will personally select suitable audience members to be my assistants. Just like the stage play, as long as you participate in my performance, you will win a prize. Of course, only the living can receive it. Magician walked along the aisle with spiral spikes on the soles of his feet. Ding, 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 hundreds of red threads floated in his eye sockets as he slowly selected his suitable assistant. Once selected, he would extend his entire head into the audience room. The selected audience members were all stunned. Their bodies were immediately soaked in cold sweat. However, according to the rules of the circus, they had to follow such an invitation. Otherwise, they would be executed. In their opinion, if they went on stage, they would at least have a chance of survival. In the end, a total of 18 audience members were selected to go on stage. They all had a characteristic that could be easily identified, such as one-eyed, one-legged, tall stature, dwarf physique, and so on. Under the magician's arrangement, the assistants went to different props. It seemed that all the magic was performed at the same time. Han Dong wasn't chosen. He watched the magic show from the sidelines and secretly used 10% of his magic eye to observe the mechanisms of the magic props. Can't see through it, or what? Han Dong continued to increase the effect of his demonic eye to 20%, but he was still unable to see through the mechanism of the magic item. Or rather, there was no mechanism at all. If there's no mechanism, then it can't be called a magic tool, but a torture tool, right? In the case of Truth Seal, at most some basic abilities could be used, and it was impossible to use spatial magic to achieve magic effects. If it was messed up like this, it would evolve into a pure slaughter, and there would be no magic effect at all. Would the circus really allow such a low-quality show to go on stage? Han Dong had even imagined the bloody scene that was about to happen in his mind. This kind of meaningless and disgusting show was the lowest level of performance, in his opinion. When all the assistants were in place, the magician took out the remote main switch from his black hat and pressed the red button. For a time, the sound of metal gears, iron chains, chainsaws, and other mechanical sounds spread throughout the venue. The temporary assistants fixed on the stage could only pray silently. They hoped that the magic show they were about to experience would be like what they saw on a daily basis. It seemed thrilling, but in the end, it could be completed through the magic trick. But the bald man fixed on the cutting table could clearly feel that the chainsaw had torn his scalp and was cutting his skull. The woman imprisoned in the water tank room wanted to find the internal mechanism to escape, but found that not only was there no mechanism, but the green liquid inside was also corrosive. The dwarf fixed on the guillotine didn't have any preparation movements. Crack! His head fell into the wooden barrel in front of him. Cruel scenes that couldn't be broadcast to the outside world were played on the stage. Except for the faster magic of the guillotine, the rest were carried out in a very slow manner. It was almost the same as the scene Han Dong had expected. He disdained such a performance, but unfortunately, due to the circus's rules, he had to fix his vision on the stage. If this is really a performance like this, the circus is too lame. When all the performances were over, the scene was like a slaughterhouse in hell, completely dyed red with blood. There were even echoes of heart-wrenching screams echoing in the air. At this moment, the magician first came to the human body-cutting device and used a black cloth to completely cover the audience that had been cut into 6 pieces. Whoosh! In just 3 seconds, the black cloth was removed. Han Dong, who was feeling bored, suddenly stood up. The scene in front of him was shocking. The audience had their heads cut open, their bodies broken into several parts, and even their blood flowed all over the floor. They actually appeared in front of everyone's eyes intact, but the color of the blood wasn't very good, and their eyes were slightly turbid. Immediately after, the magician unfolded a larger black cloth to cover the water tank. This time, it took a little longer, about 10 seconds. The female audience, who had been corroded to the point where she didn't even look human, actually appeared alive on top of the water tank. Her skin was even smoother and whiter than before, and the skin wasn't even her own. The guillotine was even simpler. It was perfectly restored in just 1 second. The only change was that the color of the blood was a little worse, and the eyes were a little dull. After all, they had lost a lot of blood. Within 5 minutes, all the audience members who seemed to have been killed by the props reappeared intact. Clap, clap, clap. Thunderous applause immediately rang out. They had never seen such a real and incredible magic performance. Just as the applause ended, there was a scream from the stage. The guy who had been cut open pounced on another audience member like a madman and directly gnawed on it, like an irrational, bloodthirsty zombie. There were also a few audience members whose limbs had been reattached in the wrong direction. Their minds seemed to have been seriously injured, and they kept screaming when they recalled the experience just now. There were also 2 whose internal organs seemed to have been reattached incorrectly, and they died within a few seconds. The time was too short. Some parts couldn't be reattached properly. I really need more practice. Luckily, I swapped places with the clown and didn't have to be the last. Otherwise, the leader would have lost his temper again. The magician immediately released the monster-like black hat and swallowed the crazy temporary assistant in 1 gulp. Then, he locked onto the other failed products. Of the 18 people who had been on the stage at the beginning, only 5 who looked normal remained in their original positions. However, the magician didn't intend to let them go. The five of you, please take a short break. The next round of magic will start soon. Due to the reduction in the number of people, I have to choose a new audience member to fill in the assistant positions. This time, Han Dong finally understood. At the same time, he laughed maniacally. On the surface, he's a magician, but in reality, he's an extremely skilled surgeon, turning the nature of magic into a surgery show, making the audience wander between life and death, experiencing the most primitive pain and fear. You're really something. Everyone here is indeed a top talent. With this thought in mind, Han Dong raised his hand again and shook it nonstop. When LeBlanc the magician looked over, it was as if he saw a freak holding a red balloon and another bloody arm waving at him. LeBlanc immediately showed a disgusted expression and didn't respond to Han Dong. Chapter 1824. What's going on? I'm too ordinary, and there's nothing special about me. It's fine if you don't want me to go on stage. But why do you have to show such a disgusted expression? Han Dong felt offended and wanted to argue with Magician. At this moment, a deep voice sounded. A deep voice rang in Magician's ears. Since someone took the initiative to participate in the show, let him go on stage. After all, this is the rule of our circus. All right. Magician snapped out of his trance and turned to look at the young man. The clown in his vision had faded away, leaving only the young man standing there waving. Even so, he paused for a moment before letting Han Dong go on stage. Mr. Magician seems to be biased against me. Han Dong deliberately stood beside Magician and whispered when he went on stage. Magician didn't avoid it at all. He chose another audience assistant while talking to Han Dong. What's your relationship with Pennywise? It seems like you're a veteran of the circus. Did you discover this during the performance of Fright Night? Please answer my question, or I may let you try an unfinished ultimate magic trick. Han Dong had no intention of hiding the truth. He said frankly, "That's right. Since you can see that I have a part of Pennywise, I believe you can also see that I'm different from him. Or rather, I'm a level higher than him. He's just a benefactor on my path. I've already squeezed out all his value and killed him completely." These words shocked Magician. Although he hated the previous clown, he was also somewhat fearful. He even had nightmares where the clown returned to the circus and killed everyone. Pennywise is dead? How did this guy die? We'll talk about the details later. Now is your crucial performance period. If anything goes wrong, the leader might be unhappy. Han Dong smiled and placed his hand on Magician's shoulder. His fresh red lips pressed against the side of Magician's ear and whispered, "Mr. LeBlanc, I'm very interested in the ultimate magic trick you just mentioned. Please let me try." Han Dong's words made Magician tense up. It was as if he was recalling a similar scene from many years ago, except that the one standing beside him at that time was a disgusting clown. "I'll consider it." All right. In the beginning, Han Dong was reluctant to participate. But now, he wanted to try the most exciting magic. It was mainly because he saw through the true nature of magicians and the benefits it would bring to him. This magic trick might be able to increase the compatibility of one or even two pieces of Han Dong's mythical puzzle. Another 18 audience members went on stage. After the previous performance, some of them had already begun to tremble. The 5 people who had accidentally survived the previous round were in an extreme mental state. They felt like they could collapse at any moment. Magician released a black top hat that resembled a living creature once again. It swallowed all the items that had been used before. He also took out some brand new torture tools, such as an electric chair, a body container, 9 different glass containers, and a springboard. However, Han Dong wasn't given any tools. Instead, he stayed in the center of the stage with Magician. When Magician pressed the button in his hand, all the tools started to operate. It was finally Han Dong's turn to perform the ultimate magic trick. The continuous sound of machinery and the participants' screams formed a special background music that served as a foil to Han Dong's magic performance. Blood splattered on Magician's body. He began to announce the ultimate magic trick to the audience. Next, The winner of Fright Night, Mr. Han, will be my assistant. He will present a performance that surpasses the limits of magic. I call a split. A device similar to a birdcage appeared in the center of the stage. There was an electric coil structure at the top. Visible electric current flowed on the surface. It was probably much stronger than the electric chair. Ka! Han Dong stepped into the birdcage. He put on the metal handcuffs between the birdcage, connecting his neck, arms, and ankles. Magician stood behind the birdcage. Whoosh! He threw out a black curtain to cover the birdcage. As soon as he finished speaking, an energy from the circus condensed above the stage and turned into a thundercloud. Boom! Thunder resounded through the audience. A thick bolt of lightning struck the electric coil at the top. Hundreds of millions of volts spread through the entire birdcage and passed through the metal handcuffs to Han Dong's body. There was no such thing as burning. Boom! There was the sound of flesh exploding. Even though there was a black screen blocking the view, the audience could still imagine the terrifying scene inside. It's time to witness a miracle. Whoosh! When Magician lifted the black curtain again, the scene in the birdcage made the audience stand up. It was completely different from the scene of minced meat in their imagination. Instead, there were a total of 18 relatively healthy Han Dong standing in the birdcage. There was no tearing of flesh, but pure splitting. How was this done in the case of Truth Closed? Although there were a few Han Dong's hands and feet in the wrong position or head in the wrong direction, it didn't affect the overall completion of the magic trick. Suddenly, there was a thunderous applause. This state didn't last long. Some of the Han Dong began to vomit, go crazy, convulse, and other extreme states. Only the Han Dong, standing in the middle, remained sane and even showed a satisfied smile. Seeing this, Magician covered the birdcage again. Thunder struck and the black curtain was removed. The Han Dong in the birdcage was gathered into a single person. However, there was blood flowing out of the 7 orifices. He reached out and pulled out various pieces of minced meat and bone from his mouth. You are actually alive? In fact, even Magician himself was a little surprised. Generally speaking, the performer should have died several times. The success of this magic trick had a lot to do with Han Dong. At this time, Han Dong leaned close to Magician's ear again. Being alive is the only way to prove that your performance is a success, right? It's really beyond the physical experience. It let me directly experience the double feeling of fatal and death. Although your technique is flawed, it's amazing. I've never seen such a high-speed suture with a normal person's body. The essence of this split magic trick was still closely related to Magician's surgery. When the thunder struck, the Han Dong connected to the metal shackles was torn into pieces in an instant. This was undeniable, but such tearing was also a necessary part of the split. When the audience's attention was attracted by the thunder, just now, Magician hurriedly poured various pieces of minced meat into the birdcage through the black hat. The amount of minced meat corresponded to the number of 18 people. A large number of red flesh threads grew from the arms to perform the super rapid suture. With the minced meat of Han Dong as the foundation and other minced meat as the support, 18 Han Dong were stitched in a short time. The principle of the unification was the same. After the thunder tore all the splits into pieces, the waste meat was collected and only the minced meat of the Han Dong was stitched up. Due to the short time, it was inevitable that there would be some mistakes during the suture. Although Han Dong looked normal on the outside, the inside of his body was already a mess. This was also the reason why Magician was curious about Han Dong's ability to stand normally and stay alive. When the two of them were close together, Magician quietly arranged the minced meat in Han Dong's body. He stitched the corresponding organs and tissue structure and re-straightened all the blood vessels. At this time, Han Dong continued to whisper, "Mr. LeBlanc, have you ever considered working for me in the future?" Chapter 1825. The treatment that the circus gave to the troupe members was not low at all. Under normal circumstances, it was obviously unrealistic to try to poach someone. However, Han Dong could see that this magician was under a lot of pressure. His performance was a lot less than the previous contestants. Although the overall performance was good, there were many flaws. The circus itself was an organization that frequently changed members. The next member to be eliminated might very well be this magician. Mr. LeBlanc, have you considered working for me in the future? Of course, I'm not talking about now, but in the future. The meaning of in the future was quite obvious. If the magician was fired from the circus or wanted to quit due to personal reasons, Han Dong would leave him a way out. By the way, Mr. Box is working for me. You two should know each other. Comical Box, the circus's foreman, is now an engineer of the Ladybug Foundation. He is helping with the prison renovation and expansion in Han Dong's brain. Box, he's working for you. Who are you? Let's talk about it after the performance. My body has almost recovered. Hurry and help the others. If the brain dies, your performance will fail. With Han Dong's reminder, the magician realized that the others were still performing. As the magician performed, the audience recovered one by one, removing the unqualified products and inviting the previous batch of audience members to fill in the gaps. The magic continued. The magic performance lasted for a total of 10 rounds. After the second round, Han Dong participated in a normal state of mind until the end. He wandered on the edge of life and death, experiencing the fatal confusion caused by his body being torn apart and randomly pieced back together. He even immersed himself in the experience to gain enlightenment. Not only did the dark puzzle increase in compatibility with death, but the crazy laughing puzzle also improved slightly. It seemed to have something to do with the fatal joke. When the performance ended, Han Dong was once again named Best Assistant. When he got off the stage, Han Dong purposely brushed past the magician and tapped his shoulder lightly with his index finger. He whispered, "Remember our agreement. If you're interested in the future, come and find me." Magician, who was cruel by nature and didn't care about life at all, seemed extra shy in front of Han Dong. He even nodded seriously. When Han Dong returned to his seat, a relatively ordinary gift was delivered. Magic was only a superficial participation. Compared to the stage play that required deep acting, it was still a few levels lower. The gift Han Dong received was a one-time used meal from the circus's kitchen. Not only could it fill his empty stomach, but it could also replenish his blood and completely recover from the injuries suffered during the magic. The circus must have arranged such a nutritious meal as a reward so that I can continue to participate in the performance after I recover. Or it could be deliberately arranged by the group leader. Han Dong didn't mind. As long as it was a part of the circus, he would participate in the performance of the circus's performance. Only 12 hours had passed, and only 1/6 of the performance had been completed. The following performances didn't decrease in excitement or death toll. One of the multiple acrobatics performed by Sean the Acrobat had resulted in the deaths of hundreds of spectators. Just the tightrope walking alone had caused more than 10 spectators to be cut in half or fall to their deaths. In addition, the Beast Tamer Bar's performance was also quite exciting. This was a large world where most of the Beastmen were hybrids. The Beast Tamer directly selected nearly 100 highly beastly spectators and tamed them on the spot. Under Bar's control, the beastly spectators completed a super difficult performance one by one. When the performance ended, Bar asked for the help of the scenographer to build a coliseum. The spectators who survived the performance weren't released. Instead, they continued to be thrown into the coliseum to perform a wonderful battle between beasts. The Sphinx who survived in the end was taken away by Bar. It would be his new pet for a long time. Just like that, the circus performance went on for 2 days and 2 nights. When the time came to the last day, there were only 249 spectators left in the venue. They thought that the next exciting performance was coming. The group leader slowly walked out from the middle of the stage. Presumably, you have watched the performance for 2 days and your bodies are a little tired. For this reason, I will remove the restriction of watching the stage and give you an additional 3 hours of rest. I suggest that you have a good rest or sleep. So far, our basic performances have been completed. On the last day, we will present the closing performance for everyone. If you're not in good spirits, you may stop here." As soon as these words came out, except for a few people, most of the audience fell asleep in a second. Han Dong also leaned his chair back 45 degrees and prepared to have a good sleep. After so many performances, it was easy to guess that the closing performance for the finale would have a higher death rate. However, Han Dong didn't care about the death rate, but a special member who hadn't appeared yet. It seems that this black and white clown still has a high status in the circus. He's the only one who hasn't appeared yet. He's obviously in charge of the closing performance. It just so happens that I also want to have some fun. Han Dong wasn't nervous at all. He closed his eyes and rested. Perhaps due to the influence of the circus scene and the change in mood after participating in various performances, Han Dong had a very strange dream in just 3 hours of sleep. In the dream, it was still the main venue of the circus, but there was no audience here. There was a small wooden table and 2 black and white chairs in the middle of the stage. The familiar Pennywise was sitting on one of the chairs and tied a balloon to the corner of the table. He was holding a deck of special poker cards in his hand. On the back of the card was the circus's eye pattern. Next, the two of them were going to have a big or small bet. "Ha ha ha, you choose first." Pennywise politely gave up the priority. Han Dong naturally didn't hold back. The priority of gambling was very important. However, he was still limited in the dream and couldn't even see through the cards. He could only grab one by feeling. A small ghost card was caught in Han Dong's hand. Its image was exactly the same as the current clown of the circus, black and white, holding an iconic cane in his hand. However, Pennywise, sitting opposite him, showed a big ghost card that looked exactly like him, holding a balloon and showing a strange smile. "I won, I'm so sorry." Swish! Without any time to react, his head had been cut off. However, the head that rolled on the table was still active. Why am I wearing these clothes? Only then did he realize that Han Dong was actually wearing half white and half black clothes. It was as if he was the black and white clown. At this moment, Pennywise, who was sitting opposite him, breathed a sigh of relief after winning the bet and took off the fully simulated human skin mask. The mysterious man hidden under Pennywise's mask had no facial structure, just like a braised egg. At this moment, the dream ended. When Han Dong opened his eyes in a daze, the circus venue had completely changed, turning into a fully interactive real-life game scene. Chapter 1826. Is there such a big deal? 3 hours of rest time is given. It seems to be for everyone to rest and recover. But in fact, the main purpose is to carry out a venue transformation. Not only the stage, but even the viewing platform where the audience is gathered has been uniformly changed. The audience who had died in the performance room had all been emptied, along with their seats. The remaining 249 audience members were all gathered in a unified area. The remaining venues were all used for the closing performance scene, using different colors to create a special game venue. At present, there was only one prop placed in the game field, a large vertical lottery turntable. The different lottery columns were separated by black and white intervals. Each column was pasted with a game envelope. It seemed that the game that would be played during the closing performance would be decided through the lottery. Han Dong muttered, "According to this posture, it should be an interactive closing performance. I'm afraid the rest of the audience will have to participate in it." Ha ha ha! Joy and sadness, two completely different laughter intertwined. The laughter that seemed to be able to spy on everyone's inner thoughts echoed in the venue. At this moment, a printed poker card flew over and inserted into the ground in front of the turntable. The character in the card was a clown in a black and white suit. The painting was peeled off. The clown, which was like a thin paper structure, was separated from the card. Then, by blowing on his fingers, the thin paper body swelled and enlarged to its normal state. Such an appearance obviously shocked the audience. Under the restriction of truth, ability could not be used, but this kind of change in form did not seem to be an inherent characteristic at all. Han Dong secretly used his magic eye to spy on the changes just now and found some signs of energy flow. Well, This guy also has some abilities. Is he not affected by the restriction of truth? Could it be that the circus acquiesced to this behavior? If an individual can resist the restriction of truth, it is also feasible to use their abilities on their own. That's good. In this case, the magic can be used at critical moments. Han Dong silently looked at the black and white clown who appeared in a special way. He recalled the dream with a different meaning and began to look forward to the next performance. Congratulations to everyone for surviving one thrilling performance after another. You were lucky enough to survive until the end of the closing ceremony. In your world, you are considered the elites of the elites. However, in the eyes of the circus, you are not completely qualified, shaking finger. Next, I will bring you the final review. The closing performance will be in the form of live interaction, and every audience member will participate in it. Only the audience members whose strength and luck were above the passing line had the chance to stay. The audience who successfully passed the closing performance was equivalent to being recognized by the circus. They could choose to leave the circus and return to their previous lives, or they could choose to stay and work for the circus. We'll have to wait until the end of the performance to know the specifics. After all, many of you didn't make it to the end. Sigh. How sad. When the clown Baggins said this, he covered his left face with one hand and cried silently, while the other covered his right face with the other hand and laughed silently. The two faces were completely unaffected by each other, and they could release their completely different emotions to their heart's content. Let's cut the crap. Let me introduce the rules of the closing performance. Baggins turned around and pointed his cane at the huge black and white turntable. The turntable will be an important prop for the game. The corresponding envelopes in each column contain the rules of the game that I have carefully designed. The game can be divided into two major categories. The games in the black column are mainly tragic. Most of them are cruel games such as killing, capital punishment, and so on. The games in the white column are mainly comedies. They're all pure luck games. They are often full of laughter or have some comedic elements. Of course, there will still be a reduction in participants in the end. When the number of participants is less than 10% of the initial number, it will enter the final segment. At this moment, Han Dong suddenly raised his hand and asked, "What do you think?" "Excuse me, who will be turning the roulette?" The clown, Baggins, immediately looked over and made an unhappy expression. It's very impolite to ask questions without my permission. I'll let it go this time, but I hope there won't be a next time. For the first time, the turntable will be turned by the circus staff. And every time after that, one person will be selected from the survivors to turn it. In addition, please abide by the rules of each round of the game. If you are discovered, you will be executed immediately. Of course, if you're confident that you can hide from the circuses, which is the eyes of the lighting master, you can also give it a try. The clown Baggins seemed to have a good relationship with the lighting master. They had appeared together at the banquet before. Since we're talking about the lighting master, the clown suddenly looked at a certain ceiling light at the upper end of the venue. "Anus, why don't you be the one to turn the roulette for the first time?" With the clown's invitation, a blonde uncle with metal lights inlaid all over his body and his eyes replaced by built-in light bulbs landed in front of the roulette. "Shall we begin now, Baggins?" "Wait, let me count the current number of people." "Time's up. Let's see who has better luck, shall we?" The clown tapped the floor with his cane. All the black squares were removed. Accompanied by a series of screams, the audience members who chose the black square all fell down, just when the rest of the audience heaved a sigh of relief. Whoosh! Some of the white squares suddenly protruded from the ground. Some raised electric saws, and some formed sealed chambers that were injected with poisonous gas. They died quickly. However, some of the black squares corresponded to the underground area. They were not traps, but soft cushions. The audience members who fell down were not injured. They slowly returned to the ground through the elevator. Although their faces were pale from fright, they slowly revealed a kind of joy that they had survived. Han Dong's luck was not bad. The white square that he chose was normal. The rules only say that half of the square areas will have problems, The black and white colors are completely misleading. Sure enough, this is a game that purely relies on luck. At the same time, it can also affect the audience's mentality. This is quite interesting. I can also try my luck. Chapter 1827. A Game of Pure Luck? At this moment, Han Dong recalled young Master's performance in stage play. When they first met, young Master was chased by an actor and fell into the arms of the head chef from the stairwell. It looked like a scene of a chase, but if one analyzed it carefully, the actor was obviously confident in his ability to kill young Master when he revealed his true form. However, young Master managed to escape and even ran into Han Dong and the others. Then, it became even more exaggerated. When the substitute actor's eldest daughter was about to kill young Master with a dagger, she was too excited and the dagger was stained with blood. Her hand slipped, and she made a mistake. The clown's choice of actors is definitely not without reason. It looks like the luck that young Master showed in the stage play wasn't completely brought about by the props, but more of his own luck. If that's the case, it explains why young Master was chosen by the clown. Come on, let's see whose luck is better. Han Dong revealed a dark smile. He seemed to have developed a strong interest in Baggins the Clown's game. Unlike the other audience members who had survived the disaster, he was completely immersed in the game. The first game ended. The number of people was halved from 250 to 125. Many of them had mental problems. If they continued to play this game of pure luck, they wouldn't be able to use their strength at all. Congratulations to the lucky survivors. Let's randomly pick someone to spin the roulette. The heads of the 125 people flashed rapidly on the projection screen. When the clown's cane fell, it was fixed on a female player. Since she had chosen the black square in the previous round, she was certain that she was dead when she fell. Even though she survived, her face was still pale. She walked up to the roulette in a daze and pulled the giant roulette that weighed several tons. Boom! The roulette began. Due to the instant death and pure luck in the first round, most of the audience hoped that they could turn to the black column. Even if it was a cruel game, it was fine as long as they could use their own strength to fight for survival. Most people couldn't accept dying for no reason due to luck. Of course, a small portion of the audience who knew their limits still wanted to continue to the white column, hoping that they could survive to the end through luck. The roulette stopped, and the needle suddenly stopped at the black column. Oh, black. The stage that I spent so much effort to set up is going to be dyed red so soon. Let me see what kind of game this is. I hope it's not too exciting. Game name, please take my body. Rules. All members of the audience are invited to draw lots twice. The first time is the prop lot, and the second time is the body lot. When everyone has finished drawing lots, you will receive the items that you have drawn according to the results of the draw. You need to use the item to remove the body part you've drawn within a set time. Time limit, 1 minute. The time starts when the props are received. Audience members who exceed the time limit and fail to separate their body parts will be executed directly. At this moment, everyone understood that whether it was white or black, they were all luck games. However, their nature was completely different. The nature of black was much worse. The clown continued his explanation. Although it's cruel, the survival rate of this game isn't fixed from start. As long as you can meet the requirements, most of you will be able to survive. It will just be a little painful. Let me give you a little spoiler. This game's endurance rating is probably only 2 stars out of 5 stars among all the black games, which is below average. Come on, please complete the draw within 3 minutes. Those who fail to draw will also be executed. There are also those who don't line up according to the rules and cut in line. Our handyman staff will treat you well. It just so happens that the kitchen is a little short of ingredients. The clown Baggins held the lottery box in his left and right hands. As soon as they heard that there was a countdown to the draw, everyone immediately went forward to draw lots. A very small number of people, including Han Dong and the young master, didn't have the intention to deliberately fight for it. Instead, they stayed behind. Many people had already received the results of the draw. When they stared at the paper in their hands, everyone's expression was almost different. Some people had even collapsed to the ground, their eyes full of despair. At this time, the staff waiting in the outfield began to distribute the props that the audience had drawn. This is a little ridiculous. Han Dong originally thought that this kind of game that required cutting body parts should be dominated by knives. There might be some kind of machete, kitchen knife, fruit knife, or with a more direct chainsaw. According to the results of the draw, knives were scarce items in this game. Even those who could draw a fruit knife could be said to be the chosen one. Most people drew spoons, iron rods, keys, belts, steel wire balls, and other strange props. However, the body draw was the real problem. The draw corresponded to a part of the body. It could be a small part, or it could be a large part. The part that was drawn had to be separated. A small part such as eyeballs, tongue, fingers, feet, or a series of internal organs in the body. A large part such as arms, calves, more than 5 kilograms of meat, with handymen weighing on the spot, or even an entire head. Due to the truth limit, if it was some individuals who didn't have physical characteristics once the head, heart, or some other important organs were drawn, it was basically a death sentence. If the two draws were connected, there were many death options that couldn't be achieved in a minute. Please tell me how to cut 5 kilograms of meat with a belt in a minute. If it was a steel wire ball, it's still possible to do it, but the process is too painful. At this time, Han Dong also came in front of the clown and prepared to draw lots. Suddenly, the clown's two faces spoke in completely different voices. Good luck, Mr. Han. I hope you can have good luck all the way to the final round. Hurry up and die. I really want to see how you look like when you die. Han Dong didn't respond. He just completed his draw according to the rules of the game. However, when he unfolded the ball of paper in his hand, Clown Baggins couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ha ha, you've drawn the best lot. Let me see your wonderful performance, mysterious Mr. Han. Prop, kitchen knife, body, head both were relatively extreme draws. One was a very good and rare prop, and the other was a body part that would die once removed. I really drew the best draw. I'm really lucky. Han Dong showed a satisfied smile at the result. When he left, he deliberately slowed down his pace. A minute of separation was more than enough for him. He deliberately glanced at the result of Young Master as draw. When the ball of paper was unfolded, Han Dong also stared slightly. This guy's luck is really good. Prop, scalpel body, fingernail, whole piece. It could be said to be the best draw result on the scene. Screams sounded at the scene. Someone was cutting meat with a spoon. Someone was inserting a soft tube into the body, trying to suck out an organ. Someone was holding a needle and thread to the eyeball, hesitating. When the 1 minute was up, those who didn't meet the requirements were shot in the head. Han Dong was about to reach the time limit. A circus worker was already secretly aiming a gun barrel at his head. Time was up. Han Dong's head suddenly turned 180 degrees in a smooth manner and looked at the staff member who was trying to snipe him. Moreover, he reached out and lifted the entire head. There were still squirming blood stains on the neck. This scene scared the other party so much that he accidentally fired. Or it could be said that because he saw the twisting filaments on the neck, his thinking was affected and he accidentally fired. As luck would have it, the bullet hit the Clown Baggins right in between his eyebrows. Chapter 1828. Han Dong naturally knew that someone was aiming at him from behind the scenes. Therefore, he had long cut off his head, or rather separated it. Using the smooth incision, he easily rotated 180 degrees on the surface of the neck, and then lifted the head up. The interface was even in the shape of a wire. Han Dong had purposely done something so horrifying and exposed the internal structure of the contamination. Clearly, there was a purpose behind it. The faceless head was Han Dong's true body. Even if the truth was sealed, the tentacles between the head were also innate. Although the effect was not that strong, it was still quite simple to affect an ordinary person who was also sealed by the truth. Since he had drawn a good lot, he naturally had to make good use of it. The spiritual influence of the pollution caused him to misfire. At the same time, he secretly used a magic eye to guide him. This led to an accidental coincidence. The bullet hit the clown between his eyebrows, and he could even clearly hear the sound of his skull shattering. If he did this, although there was a risk of exposing his trump card, he could test the clown Baggins' ability, or find an opportunity to do something else. He could not let Baggins grasp all the opportunities. Being shot in the head was certain death for an ordinary person. Han Dong wanted to know how the clown would react. When the accident happened, Han Dong immediately reattached the head that was lifted up in the air to his neck. Even though the interface was still bleeding, he still covered his mouth in surprise. Drip, drip, drip. A mixture of black and white blood dripped to the ground. Baggins the clown was shocked. He reached out to touch his penetrated skull, as if he could not believe what had happened. He first looked at the handyman who shot him from behind the scenes. Then his eyeballs rolled up and his body leaned back. He fell to the ground. As the brain and blood spread on the ground, Baggins' body twitched slightly as if he was really going to die. At this time, the circus medical team went on stage. After bandaging his head, the clown was carried behind the stage on a stretcher. At this time, the audience who recognized the cruelty of the game were praying together for one thing. I hope the clown dies just like that and ends this closing performance quickly. Only Han Dong looked troubled. He knew very well that the clown was most likely faking it. Going behind the scenes to deal with it could avoid exposing his ability. However, since they could not observe Baggins' condition, they could not observe his condition. Han Dong also took advantage of his absence to find other things to do. His gaze locked onto a person in the crowd, a young man whose injuries were second only to his own. Not even a minute had passed. Clown Baggins leaned on his walking stick as if nothing had happened. He walked up the stage in a relaxed and joyful manner. The bullet hole in his head had also completely disappeared. This scene made most people despair, which meant that the game would continue. When Baggins returned to the stage, he brushed his 2 fingers across the side of his ear to greet Han Dong. Han Dong also responded politely with a smile, but he felt a little uncomfortable. As expected of the current clown, one of the top performers of the circus, after being hit by a bullet, he pretended to be seriously injured or even dead so that he could be carried backstage to recover. He purposely hid his abilities so that he wouldn't be exposed to me. Once he's not arrogant, he's not bad. The second game, Please Take Away My Body, seemed to be able to survive as long as he was ruthless. In fact, the limitations of the props, the problem of the body parts, and the 1-minute realization made many people unable to do this. The death rate was far more than 50%. From 125 people before the game began, it had sharply reduced to 47 people. Moreover, these 47 people were not completely healthy. Nearly half of them were missing arms, legs, internal organs, and flesh. There were only about 20 people who could move normally without too much restriction. Oh, I didn't expect there to be so few people left. It seems that the quality of you guys isn't very good. It doesn't matter if the pace is a little faster. After all, when the number of people is less than 10%, we will enter the final stage. These games that haven't been played on the wheel can be played until the circus performance in the future. Seeing that everyone's condition isn't very good, why don't you let Mr. Han spin the wheel this time? Mr. Han doesn't seem to be injured at all. He easily cut off his head and reattached it. Okay. Han Dong didn't refuse and went straight to the roulette. Just as he was about to spin it, Clown Baggins suddenly leaned his head closer. Hey, Mr. Han, there aren't many people left. I estimate that we will enter the final stage in one more round. There are still many interesting games that you haven't played. One of them should be very suitable for you. Do you want to try it? With your physical precision, you should be able to stop the wheel at the corresponding position, right? Do you see the white letter at 417 in the lower right corner? How about playing around? In fact, Han Dong could have refused. However, Han Dong did not hesitate at all. He maintained his smile and gladly accepted the clown's suggestion. Physical control was accumulated from experience. For him, who had been in the Fight Club for a long time, it was nothing at all. The wheel reached the corresponding position under Han Dong's control. A white envelope. Compared to the cruel black that required a certain price to pay, everyone was more inclined to white. Even if they died, it would be more pleasant. Game name, Matchup Rules 1. Grouping. The remaining people on the scene will be grouped into 2 groups voluntarily or in the form of obedience. If the total number of people is an odd number, the person who can't form a team in the end will be directly executed. 2. Match up. The 2 people in the 2 groups will gamble by drawing lots. The winner will enter the next round of the game. Time limit. Teams are limited to 3 minutes. The matchup will be given a reasonable time limit according to the gambling rules. It was another 50-50 elimination game. Since the remaining 45 people happened to be an odd number, the voluntary team formation began immediately. No one wanted to be the last person left alone. However, no one took the initiative to find Han Dong. After all, his reputation was too great. Everyone in the audience saw his wonderful performance in stage play. Who would dare to gamble with such a monster? Many people even hoped that this monster would die, just like that, to reduce the competitiveness of the subsequent games. Just as Han Dong was about to be reduced to the last person, a familiar-looking young man came in front of him. "Mr. Han, the only acquaintance here is you. Why don't we have a match?" The person who came was the young master, Mr. Gracie, who had been completely transformed by Baggins's training. The young master's face that was newly stitched on his face made his entire expression very uncomfortable and even a little distorted. Sticking close to the side of the young master's face, he happened to see the black and white clown not far away with a happy expression. Now the situation was very straightforward. If Han Dong didn't agree, he would be reduced to the last person to be executed. If he agreed, he would have a match with the luckiest guy. At the same time, another old man came over. It was Governor Willis, who had first met Han Dong and came to the circus with him. He had also survived until now and lost an arm in the last round of the game. When he saw the predicament Han Dong was in, he took the initiative to help. "Mr. Han, do you want to bet with me?" The additional option made Han Dong a little surprised, but he had already made a decision in his heart. A hand landed on Governor Willis's shoulder. "It's okay. Let me play with this young master. Since we came together, we can go back together in the end. This is a perfect ending. Thank you for your kindness, Governor Willis." Then he turned to the young master in front of him. "Mr. Gracie, let's see who has better luck." Chapter 1829. A performance was just a performance. In fact, whether it was Han Dong or Baggins, they had already locked onto each other when they first met at the banquet before the circus performance. Whether it was a similar identity or a shared smile, the fates of the two were destined to intertwine. It seemed like the closing performance was targeted at the remaining audience, but in their eyes, they only had each other. Therefore, Han Dong was also very clear about one thing. The clown arranged for Gracie, who had strong luck, to target him. The division of the bet had been completed. Baggins was extremely surprised. He didn't expect that someone would take the initiative to invite Han Dong to a bet. Although the final result didn't change and Han Dong still chose young master, the change in the middle made Baggins a little upset. You could have chosen this old man to avoid the dead end. So why did you deliberately send yourself to death? What kind of trump card are you hiding that makes you so confident that you can win against strong luck in this kind of bet based purely on luck? Even if you really have a trump card, why didn't you save it to deal with me at the end? I heard that the previous clown was an out-and-out madman who did things without considering the consequences. It seems that you have more or less inherited some of that. Baggins didn't think too much about it. Since the result was the same, he just needed to watch carefully. There were many ways to bet. Dice, playing cards, and even the simplest rock-paper-scissors game. Han Dong had drawn a poker game. Each person had 10 chips. Once they lost all, the game was over. The rules were very simple. Both sides bet with chips. The person who bet with more chips had the priority to draw cards. Let's try one first. Han Dong tried to take out a chip. The young master on the opposite side showed a rather unnatural smile and decisively took out 2 chips to get the priority to draw cards. A circus handyman was the dealer at the scene and spread the shuffled poker cards evenly. Completely different from the timid image in the stage play, the young master in front of him didn't have a trace of timidity. With a swift and fierce technique, he directly drew one of the cards. Mr. Han, my luck doesn't seem to be very good. I don't think I can win with this card, right? Before Han Dong could draw a card, Gracie took the initiative to show the card he had just drawn. It was neither the king of small, nor the flower, but the four of diamonds, a small card that was basically impossible to win. If the two were the same size, it would be changed to a comparison of suits from big to small. It would be spades, hearts, clubs, and diamonds. So small. I think I can win. Han Dong reached out and slowly slid his hand between the cards. Relying on his intuition, he pinched one of the cards between his fingers. As his fingers turned, the card flipped over as well. 3 of spades. Wow, you can even lose like that. When the banker gave all the chips to the young master and was ready to shuffle the cards for the next round, the young master suddenly stopped. Han Dong suddenly suggested, "Wait, there's still a lot of time anyway. Can I try to draw a few more cards before the next round?" The odd job worker in charge of being the banker nodded. In any case, it was a bet between the two of them. As long as the young master had no objections, it was fine. Han Dong immediately drew 3 cards at random from the pile. He even deliberately chose the first card on the surface to avoid randomness. When the 3 cards were flipped over, the result made Han Dong show a surprised and satisfied expression. The 3 cards and the previous 3 of spades made up a bomb. That's right, there were 4 3 of spades in Han Dong's hand. What kind of strong luck is this? It's too ridiculous, right? It's really interesting. Han Dong put on a helpless expression and could only grit his teeth and continue. In the following bet, Han Dong could only put out 1 chip no matter what, and he couldn't win no matter what. No matter how many cards the young master chose, Han Dong's cards were bound to be smaller than his. In fact, there was a way to defeat good luck, which was to directly use the magic eye's X-ray vision. But for some reason, Han Dong just didn't use it. In the eyes of others, such a game was Han Dong's slow death. After a while, Han Dong only had 1 chip left in his hand. Once he lost, he would be executed. The clown Baggins, who was standing not far away, also focused all his attention on the bet, especially on Han Dong. He had full confidence that Han Dong would use his ability at this juncture. "I never thought of using this lucky guy to deal with you. It's enough to force you into a desperate situation and reveal your hidden ability. There's only 1 card left. What ability will you use to reverse the situation? I believe that a strong person of your level must have some abilities that are not suppressed by the truth seal, right?" Baggins watched carefully, ensuring that he wouldn't miss any details. The game began. It was still the young master's card, King of Hearts, which was a relatively big card. At the critical moment of life and death, Han Dong still did the same as before. He swiped his palm across the pile of cards and randomly drew a card. The clown Baggins watched very carefully. He didn't cheat, nor did he reveal any ability, and even his actions were the same as before. Does this guy want to die? Baggins continued to watch, not missing any details. When the card was turned over, the result made his eyes widen, and even his left and right face turned into a shocked expression at the same time. King of Spades, Han Dong actually beat his opponent by a small margin and won 2 of the young master's chips. What's going on? When did this guy make a move? I don't think I missed any details. Let's watch again. Baggins raised his attention to 200%, and his eyeballs were about to squeeze out of their sockets. Han Dong still took out a chip. The young master still took out 2 to get priority. Draw card, Jack of Spades. When it was Han Dong's turn, he leisurely floated his palm between the pile of cards, swinging it back and forth. Baggins could only lock his swaying palm and constantly consume his mental strength. Draw card. Ha! Han Dong didn't look at the card, but directly slammed it on the table. Queen of Hearts. Hey, my luck seems to be getting better. Han Dong took back his chips with a look of surprise. At present, his chips had returned to the original 5. Baggins's face was full of astonishment. He still didn't see anything, and even his eyes were bloodshot. He quickly spat and wiped his eyes seriously. Impossible. Why can't I see through this guy's technique? At this moment, Han Dong suddenly pushed out all 5 chips and suggested, "It's almost time. How about we end it, young Master Gracie? With the same chips, let's draw cards at the same time." The young master didn't refuse and nodded in agreement. After the dealer unfolded the shuffled cards, he raised his hand and motioned for the two to prepare to draw cards. When his arm fell, swish, the two of them each drew a card. The young master habitually showed it, and it was the second biggest kid card. When it was Han Dong's turn, he didn't directly show it, but secretly blocked a part of it, so that only the young master and the dealer could see it. When the result was witnessed, all the chips were awarded to Han Dong. "The bet is over. Winner, Han Dong." "How can it be? Could it be that luck has failed?" Clown Baggins's eyes were already dry from staring, and he was already dripping eye drops, but he didn't see anything during the whole process. The only thing he could think of was that luck had failed, and he had seen this situation before. At this moment, as the dealer's handyman, and also as the executor, he had already pressed the pistol at his waist against the young master's forehead. He pulled the trigger. The guns imported from a circus were all top-notch workmanship, but it actually jammed at this moment. From this, it could be seen that luck hadn't failed. The handyman was annoyed and directly pulled out a rib to use as a blade. Swish! The knife missed again. He could only perform a zero-distance cut close to the young master's neck, and only then did he cut off the young master's head and complete his mission. At this moment, Han Dong and Baggins's gazes met. Before the other party could ask, Han Dong took the initiative to say, "You can't understand, right? Why did you lose to me when your luck is still there? Mr. Clown, you seem to have blamed the problem on me from the beginning to the end and never thought that it was the young master who had a problem. Since you can tamper with the contestants, I should be able to do the same, right?" After Han Dong's reminder, Baggins immediately reacted. Could it be when I was being carried backstage for treatment? At this moment, Gracie, who had been decapitated, suddenly stood up. Slender gray tentacles drilled out of her neck, and a few of the tentacles were wrapped around her personal prop from the stage play, Mother's Pocket Watch. Seeing this, Baggins pretended to be careless and pulled out a supporting wooden block of the game wheel, causing him to lose his center of gravity. Boom! The wheel, which weighed dozens of tons, directly crushed the headless corpse into pieces. At this moment, Han Dong also walked to Baggins' side and continued his explanation. "Although my ability is suppressed, if I parasitize corruption in the brain, I can still fine-tune the other party's thoughts. I only need to change the concept of bigger in the young master's mind to smaller, and I can use his luck to easily win. In the end, I'll give you this winning card." Han Dong had already drawn Pennywise's image with blood on the big ghost card, used to win. After sending it to Baggins, he turned around and returned to his position as an audience member. Chapter 1830. The bet ended. The number of survivors dropped from 45 to 20. During the bet, two groups of people spent a lot of time not completing the bet because the rules weren't set properly. In the end, they were executed for exceeding the time limit. According to the rules, when a number of people was less than 10%, 25 people, of the initial number, they would enter the final round. Clown Baggins stared at the big ghost card in his hand and froze in place. It was as if his mentality was changing. He had once come to the circus by chance and was invited to become a clown. He was curious about one thing. Why were the other members replacing their predecessors with their strength while he was filling in the empty spot? As Baggins slowly became familiar with the circus, he began to secretly inquire about the former clown. At first, when he asked about the other members, everyone's expression would become very ugly and they were unwilling to say much. Only Mr. Anus, who was in charge of controlling the lights, and the handyman, Sean, were willing to reveal some information. In summary, it was disgusting and uncomfortable. Just being in the same room as the former clown made him feel uncomfortable all over. No one in the circus liked him at all. However, the former clown's performance was excellent. This was the main reason why he was able to stay. In the end, the reason why Pennywise was kicked out of the circus was because of the unanimous complaints of all the members. The head of the circus considered the stability and overall integrity of the circus and decided to dismiss him in advance. Later, Baggins, whose status gradually rose, obtained detailed information about Pennywise in the circus's archive room. It was also at this time that he began to have a strong interest in his predecessor. He even inquired about information in the Black Tower during his vacation. Unfortunately, when he finally found the BBC, Black Tower Control Headquarters, the clues were completely cut off. Until today, this young man, who was very similar to Pennywise, came to the circus as an audience member. This guy's ability, what is it? Baggins came to the top of the corpse that had been flattened by the collapsed roulette and found that there were tentacle-like strips of flesh wriggling. He carefully used his cane to attract these tentacles together and then used a similar magic box to collect all the tentacles. Fortunately, he was under the limit of truth. These strange tentacles didn't have the characteristics of splitting, deformation, spreading pollution, and so on. They only burrowed into the body like parasites and then corroded and affected the body. As long as he didn't touch it directly, there wouldn't be much of a problem. This should be an attribute unique to hybrid demons. Why would it appear on this human youth? And he happened to be related to Pennywise. Is this the reason why I can't find any information on the Black Tower? This is the first time I've met such an interesting opponent. Baggins' ability to adjust his emotions could be said to have reached the pinnacle. What happened just now did not cause him to fall into a state of irritation. Instead, it made him become serious. He even put the big ghost card in his pocket as a souvenir so that he could use it to reflect on this defeat at any time in the future. Dear audience members who have won the bet, you have obtained the right to participate in the final segment. After our staff has cleaned up the scene, I will announce the relevant rules of the game. If you go one step further, you'll be able to survive the performance of this circus and obtain a survival certificate issued by the circus. As long as it is a slightly larger world, this certificate will be recognized. Of course, I also hope that I can dig out real talents who can serve the circus from among you. Not far away, Han Dong looked at Baggins, whose emotions did not change at all, and gave him a look of approval. Not bad. That's more like it. If you can't even manage your emotions, you're too weak. When the stage returned to normal, Baggins the Clown began to speak before the final segment. The Dark Circus was originally called the True Vision Circus. The name is related to our boss, 5. True Vision often sees the dark side. In order to make it easier for the audience to accept, it was later renamed the Dark Circus. The overall style is also mainly dark. No matter what kind of world it is, when all creatures obtain basic cognitive abilities, they have already put on a mask for themselves. A mask used for camouflage, allowing them to better adapt to the group, society, or world. It was the same for reality shows. The actors on stage used the skills they had practiced for a long time to disguise themselves in front of the audience and win the hypocritical applause and cheers. In reality, it could not fill the void in their hearts, nor could it achieve a truly perfect performance. The most perfect and top-notch visual enjoyment had to be realized through reality. The creation of the circus was for this. It was to provide a place for everyone to reveal the truth, appreciate the truth, and show the truth. It was to bring everyone the most perfect visual feast. The final segment requires you to take off your masks and show your truest side. And the circus happened to prepare such a special drug for everyone to remove their masks. In addition, as the person in charge of the closing performance, I will also participate. At the end of the speech, a group of special audience had already appeared in the audience. It was the group leader who had participated in the circus performance, such as dancer Aaliyah, director Christian, and so on. They would be special audience members to enjoy this true performance. Those who performed well would receive a direct invitation to the circus. At this moment, syringes filled with black crystals were delivered to the survivors. Baggins the clown began to explain how to use them. The way to use the syringe is very simple. You just need to insert it directly into the back of the cervical spine and push it all into the body. If the injection fails or is not completed within the stipulated 5 seconds, it will be regarded as an automatic disqualification and will be executed directly. The duration of the injection is 15 minutes. When the effect ends, the performance will also come to an end. Those who survive will be the last survivors of this circus performance. Good luck. Baggins held the syringe at the back of his neck with one hand and raised his other hand in the air. Everyone listen to my command. 3, 2, 1. At the end of the countdown, everyone pushed the syringe. A cold liquid mixed with small crystal particles was injected into the body. Some kind of restriction in their consciousness was completely opened. Not only did their bestial nature surge out, but some of the characteristics and talents that they had originally lost all returned. They either grew fangs or dense spikes grew out of their backs, or their entire bodies were covered in pitch-black fur. The dark side in the survivors' bodies was unreservedly released. Biting, sneak attacks, and even mating. Baggins the clown was also affected. His hands covered the corresponding half of his face, as if he was crying, but also as if he was snickering. Anyone who tried to attack or get close to Baggins would be affected by any kind of emotion, or they would laugh incessantly, unable to do anything else until they were killed by others or died, or they would cry incessantly, fall into endless despair and sorrow, and find a dark and deserted area alone to end their own lives. At this moment, ha ha, a burst of laughter of a completely different type and concept spread throughout the audience. Even special guests in the audience felt their hair stand on end when they heard this kind of laughter. They revealed expressions of extreme disgust. Pennywise, no, it's indeed very similar to that disgusting clown's laughter. But this guy's laughter is a level higher. It's mixed with the most extreme kind of madness. I have to wear earplugs. It's really uncomfortable. The members discussed with each other. Only the captain and the butler remained silent. Chapter 1831. The Dark Side of Human Nature. To put it bluntly, it was something that existed in the deepest part of one's nature. In order to survive in social circles, people would hide it and were unwilling to admit that they had this nature. But Han Dong was different. As early as in the abyss of chaos, he had already completed his understanding of self. This kind of opportunity, the liquid that exposed the dark side of human nature, did not affect him much at all. Because he had never deliberately disguised himself, he could express himself at any time. The injection at the back of his neck only made him feel a cold feeling spread throughout his body, allowing him to enter a performance state where he wanted to express his nature. Seeing the audience around him express their dark side one after another, revealing their true selves, coupled with Baggins's emotional catharsis, Han Dong officially treated this place as a stage. From the deepest part of his body, from the abyss, came the truest and craziest laughter. Ha 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 ha! Han Dong's laughter instantly drowned out all the noise in the audience. Even the laughter of those who had been assimilated by Baggins, and even Baggins's own laughter, were drowned out or completely assimilated. What kind of laughter is this? It's so dangerous. Baggins felt a potential danger from it. Even the effect of the medicine he injected into his body weakened a lot, and he became slightly clear-headed. At the same time, he recognized one thing clearly. This young man's laughter, whether it was quality or level, was above his. Therefore, Baggins made a last-minute decision. His hands clasped into the skin on the right side of his face. He tore off the entire right side of his face that represented joy and temporarily put it into the inner pocket of his suit. Then he let this sadness spread from the left side of his face to the entire face. An extremely gloomy aura spread out. Even the clown's clothes turned pure white. In this way, he resisted Han Dong's laughter. Even so, Baggins still felt strained, but he had to stick to the stage no matter what. After all, this was his closing performance. At the same time, The audience on the stage, who were fighting each other and venting their desires, were stunned. Even though blood was still spurting out from their necks, even though their brains were already exposed, even though their large intestines were scattered all over the ground, they all stopped what they were doing, and the corners of their mouths curled up in an extremely tense manner. The next second, crack! The sound of bones turning came from the neck. Regardless of whether the audience was facing him from the front, the side, or the back, they all turned their heads and looked at the clown, Baggins. Furthermore, they used their own blood to paint a scarlet smiley face. The frequency of their laughter was almost the same as Han Dong's. This is... Baggins naturally wouldn't be intimidated by these guys. However, there was a kind of conscious influence that made him feel fearful. At this moment, he seemed to have peeped into a horrifying doomsday scene. Red will be the main color of the world, and all the creatures in the world will be beheading themselves while laughing. What's even more exaggerated is that the severed heads will float in the air like balloons and continue to laugh maniacally. Baggins even peeked into his head in this apocalyptic scene. The suppressive feeling brought about by this concept made him instinctively retreat. By the time he realized this, his body had already left the stage, and the main character on the stage was no longer him. Did I lose? That's ridiculous. This person was actually able to develop laugh to such an extent, far surpassing my understanding. I had indeed lost. Anyway, I've been in the circus for several years. It's time to start a new adventure. Baggins still maintained an optimistic and cheerful mental state, even though the left side of his face couldn't stop crying. Putting the right side of his face back, both faces no longer showed any excessive emotions. They turned into an audience outside the venue, silently admiring Han Dong's performance. At this moment, the individuals affected by the maniacal laughter held hands and formed a regular hexagon between the curtains, with Han Dong surrounded in the center. As they continued to laugh, the liquid that had been injected into their bodies flowed out from the corners of their mouths, and they slowly returned to their human states. The liquid that flowed out flowed towards the center and was absorbed by Han Dong. This made Han Dong sink into a deeper state of maniacal laughter, until a notification came from his brain frowny face detected that the compatibility of the maniacal laughter puzzle has reached 100%. Fatal Joke has been upgraded to Doomsday Joke. The relevant characteristics are as follows. Doomsday Joke, the maniacal laughter factor's transmission rate, invasion and influence efficiency, and range of effect have reached the maximum. When the invasion reaches a certain level, it can directly act on the space of consciousness, causing the apocalypse to descend. Once the apocalypse is formed, the individual will be completely disintegrated by the root of truth, and there is no possibility of resurrection. At this moment, the captain, who was sitting in the audience, showed a surprised and uncomfortable expression. The limit of truth was set by him. At this moment, there was an extremely strong consciousness impact trying to tear this shackle, and the source was Han Dong on the stage. It was the first time the captain had seen this kind of consciousness impact transmitted through laughter. Suddenly, a stream of blood flowed out from his nose. The butler hurriedly handed over a handkerchief, and the candle above his head was also very surprised. "Captain, are you okay?" "I'm fine. I'm just not used to it." At this moment, Han Dong stopped laughing maniacally, stood in the middle of the stage, and made an elegant gesture of curtain call. He didn't kill the audience who cooperated with him, and took the initiative to remove all the doomsday effects. At this point, the circus performance was all over. Although the 20 people who participated in the final segment were seriously injured, they all survived. Han Dong showed a satisfied expression, feeling the changes in his body. The surface of the stone tablet in the depths of the abyss was shining with the red light of a smiling face. The compatibility of the first puzzle piece is finally saturated. There's still 2 pieces left. I didn't expect that this trip to the circus would satisfy and release the remaining clown attribute, completely filling the puzzle piece's compatibility in advance. I originally wanted to follow the circus to various worlds to perform to improve the crazy laughter's comprehension, But now, there's no need for that. I have enough strength to officially embark on the road of collecting the Book of the Dead. Han Dong, who had finished his performance, didn't step down from the stage. Instead, he turned and walked to the other side of the stage, where the clown Baggins was. Mr. Baggins, I'm really sorry. I took your position at the last moment. This stage was originally prepared for more suitable people. I'm just a loser. The title of clown will be yours. I look forward to your next performance, and I hope you do better than me. Strike while the iron is hot. At this moment, the leader also stood up and made an inviting gesture. Mr. Han, I officially invite you to take on the role of clown in the Circus of Darkness. A direct invitation from the leader was the highest honor in the circus. They could even add a few benefits clauses that others didn't dare to think of when signing the labor contract. But is there a misunderstanding? I'm just here to watch the performance. Mr. Baggins' performance as clown was impeccable. I have no intention of taking the position. Thank you very much for the invitation, but I really don't have the time. C. As current situation isn't optimistic. As a candidate for M and a middleman between both sides, I have a lot of things to do. A candidate for the original alphabet. The circus members were shocked, but the director, clown, and butler who had dealt with Han Dong before weren't too surprised. The leader looked enlightened. No wonder Han Dong's information couldn't be found at all. I see. Our circus can't invite someone like you. However, can you stay for a post-performance dinner with us tonight? Of course. The banquet is already being set up. We can go over now. When they left the stage, suddenly, Han Dong placed a hand on Baggins' shoulder and whispered into his ear, "Don't worry. Mr. Baggins, your smile has a completely different nature. Your emotional management is also the best I've ever seen. If you're interested in the future, you're welcome to work for me. I believe that with our similar identities, we'll get along very well." Chapter 1832. Including Han Dong, a total of 20 people survived. For a large world, survival was relatively rare in the history of the circus. Generally, only sub-super or super worlds could have such a survival rate. Among them, Governor Willis, whom Han Dong knew, and the cat actor who survived the stage play, Little Worth, had also survived. Furthermore, they had received an invitation from a circus. The two of them would be senior servants in the circus. They even had the chance to be promoted to corps members in the future. Even if they were just servants, the treatment they could enjoy and the resources they could obtain were far higher than what they currently had. However, they were not qualified to go to the main banquet hall. Only Han Dong, who had been invited by the group leader, was qualified to eat with the group members. The butler, whose head was shaped like a candlestick, was in charge of serving the dishes. During the meal, Han Dong didn't put on the airs of a candidate at all and drank to his heart's content. The dancer, Aaliyah, was even interested in Han Dong and wanted to get close to him many times. However, she realized that he didn't even look at her and didn't seem interested at all. Even if Aaliyah used her flexible body to secretly make some exaggerated seductive movements in Han Dong's field of vision, she still couldn't divert his attention at all. From her observation, Han Dong seemed to be more interested in the clown and the director. Is there a problem with this guy's sexual orientation? Then there's nothing I can do. Aaliyah returned to her seat in boredom and drank alone. At this moment, the clown, Baggins, suddenly asked a question that everyone was quite concerned about. The somewhat disappointed Aaliyah immediately perked up. The right face asked with a happy expression, "Mr. Han, what's your relationship with Pennywise? Why are you so similar? When you first stepped into the circus, I had a homologous feeling." Han Dong put on a sympathetic face and said, "That's right. This guy is actually quite pitiful." Not long after he left the circus, he was listed as a rampager by the Black Tower and was directly arrested. When he worked in the circus, didn't he show any rampager characteristics? When this question was raised, the group leader sitting in the first seat answered, "Pennywise's uncontrollable physique can infect other individuals through his laughter. I've known about it for a long time, but he's been rather restrained in the circus and there have been no instances of the servants or employees being infected. The reason why he was immediately marked by Black Tower after leaving the circus was because I wrote a letter to BC. After all, he was in a terrible state when he left the team and needed immediate control. I see. Han Dong guessed that the reason why the regiment commander dismissed the person first and then reported him was probably to minimize the trouble. Not long after this guy was detained in BBC, there was a subspace storm. Pennywise, who was imprisoned in the shallow zone, had his main body commit suicide. A very small number of grasshopper clones escaped and were swept to a special world called Dry Town by the subspace storm. I happened to be there as a participant of fate. This clown was indeed very troublesome. But in the end, I still killed it and used it as my sole nourishment to water the perfect mad laughter flower. Everyone present could feel that Han Dong was fundamentally different from the original clown. The quality of his laughter during the closing performance was also on a higher level. Many people laughed heartily when they heard the news of Pennywise's death. Only Baggins, the clown sitting next to him, showed a sad expression. After all, he still wanted to see his predecessor. When the banquet reached the end and everyone was full, Han Dong wiped the corner of his mouth with a napkin and looked at the long-haired regiment commander. Regiment commander, I just happened to participate in the meeting of the Supreme not long ago. The holder of the letter V wasn't present. Was it you? Teacher has been very busy recently, so it's normal that he didn't attend. My identity is the same as yours, and I'm the only candidate. If I'm already in power, I wouldn't be unable to investigate your true identity. I see. Han Dong's guess was right. Although the regiment commander was powerful, he hadn't reached the level of the holder. His true level was probably between the middle and lower ranks. Before I leave, I have something very important to inform you, regiment commander. A few days before I came to the circus, I visited BBC with the support of Director Charles and came into contact with the deep containment. The internal situation isn't optimistic, and it's only a matter of time before it completely goes out of control. According to the information I've gathered, once it goes out of control, the multiverse connected to the Black Tower will be affected, and there might even be catastrophic events beyond imagination. The circus needs to travel to different worlds to perform, and if there's trouble, you can go to World S01 to hide at any time. The temporary cooperation between the Black Tower and World S01 should be completed smoothly. If you want to come over, just tell me my name in World S01. Han Dong condensed a letter made of black sand crystals with his left arm, with Warren Nicholas' signature. He handed the letter and the circus card that was previously given to the regiment commander. When Han Dong got up to leave, he deliberately glanced at the black and white clown and the director, and the meaning he wanted to express was very clear. Asterisk buzz. Asterisk Han Dong stepped back into the Black Tower through the world portal. I didn't expect the Dark Circus to be a private entertainment facility built by Gongzi. However, this should be both his interest and his special way of pursuing. The circus's elite staff selection model is also not bad. Director and clown are very good talents, and they are very compatible with my prison world. I hope they can come over to work soon. Han Dong first went to the world in his mind. 2 engineers borrowed from the Ladybug Foundation had already drawn up a modification and expansion plan, and after getting Han Dong's permission, they officially started work. The wardens of the entire world would also join in the project, and it was expected to be completed in 2 months. Han Dong also directly threw the main task of supervising to Dr. Swollen, and if there were any special situations, he would inform him. As for Togu and the others, they were still in the special world called Jericho. Due to the special nature of the matter, Han Dong could not intervene midway, and could only let the staff inform him as soon as Togu and the others finished their training. It should be about time. If Grimm's challenge in the club is over, he will directly return to S01. It's time to bring back the details of the Black Tower's headquarters. At that time, the meeting between the old kings will also be officially held, and they will vote on whether to establish a temporary partnership with the Black Tower. At the same time, World S-01, Human's Holy City. A special visitor came to the door of the clock tower, so much so that the clock keeper had to personally receive him. When a young man, standing in front of the steam machine, saw the brain structure of the clock keeper, his eyes flashed with bright stars. Out of etiquette, he also took off the hood that covered his face, revealing a bright brain that contained a galaxy. "Excuse me, did Nicholas go to the Destiny realm from here? Did he say how many days he would be in there?" The clock keeper nodded and replied, "Yes, I don't know the specific time. Then I'll wait at the door. I have something urgent to inform him." Chapter 1833. As the Holy City had already merged with the hybrid demons, someone like Bop was still very respected in the Holy City. Even Hugo Harrison, the leader of the Secret Word Knights and the headmaster of the University of Missouri's branch in the Holy City, dared to come personally after hearing the news. A few days passed, and Bop stood at the entrance of the bell tower and waited quietly. If a knight squad wanted to go to the bell tower for a fateful adventure, he would politely step aside. Sometimes, when he met a knight with spatial characteristics, he would even kindly give a few words of advice. Whether it was windy or rainy, Bop just stood there quietly. There were no unnecessary changes in the starry sky in his mind. However, the longer Bop waited, the more anxious the Holy City became. Even leader Hugo personally invited Bop to sit in the nearby reception area, but he was still rejected. It seemed that there was something important that he had to inform Han Dong as soon as possible. Just as Hugo was a little worried, a black carriage suddenly drove over. Mr. Black and White, who was wearing a thin windbreaker, walked down from the carriage. He was wearing a white mask on his face. Deputy leader of the Knights of Plague and head of the mystery department of the Knight Academy, Black and White, I'm honored to meet Mr. Bop. Bop seemed to have some sense of homogeneity. He looked at the mysterious masked man in front of him with a curious gaze. There's actually such a high-level astrologer among the humans, and there seems to be something else mixed in your body. Is it a crow? I didn't expect that other than Nicholas, there was another high-level hybrid in this city. Double soul, false king, forbidden domain, you don't seem to be any worse than the crow god. Bop gave a very high evaluation as soon as they met. He could even see a starry sky characteristic on Mr. Black and White that could be used to enter the void. Mr. Bop, it's rare to have such an opportunity. I especially invite you to visit the star observation room. If Nicholas comes out, the star observation room will be able to observe him immediately. Although Bop was interested, the matter at hand was more important. He also politely refused with a smile. You don't have to care about me at all. I'm just standing here physically. My spirit can help the universe at any time. In the few days I've been standing here, I've already finished reading all the famous books on Kaftan. The matter I'm about to report to Nicholas is very important. There's no room for any mistakes. Mr. Black and White continued. Nicholas used to be my student. When he was studying in the Knight Academy, he would study in the stargazing room for a fixed period of time every day. There is still information about Nicholas when he was still a trainee knight there. If you're interested, we can even talk about other things about him. In addition, the watchman in charge of the clock tower is also my friend. As soon as Nicholas comes out, he will be notified to meet us in the stargazing room. In a split second, a meteor streaked across Bop's eyes. When Bop heard that he would be able to understand Nicholas' past and find out about his experiences growing up, curiosity and interest quickly spread and exploded in his mind. All right, since you know the clockmaker, you can make sure that Nicholas won't go anywhere else after he comes out. Let's go to the so-called star observation room. I'm also curious about how human astrologers work. Seeing this, Hugo heaved a sigh of relief. Bop's identity was not ordinary. Not only was he the youngest professor in the Misha University, but he was also the child of the void. If the hybrid demons knew that Bop had been waiting outside for a few days without any hospitality, many forces or hybrid demons would have a bad impression of the Holy City. The reason for the delay was, it was because Grimm had participated in the 18 trials in the club. Although Grimm won in the end, he had to pay a heavy price. Grimm, who had recovered from his serious injuries, gathered the remaining energy of the abyss in his body, and created an absolute berserk body. He went through 18 rounds of almost impossible death fights. When the stalemate reached the last round, Grimm's consciousness had almost completely dissipated. He relied on the berserk body to continue fighting. The medical staff was already waiting outside the arena. However, when Grimm won the last round, something strange happened. It was different from when he lost the previous challenge and turned into an abyss. Grimm, who had won the difficult victory this time, had a strange change that even Han Dong had never seen before. It was also Sally's first time seeing it. The abyss holes that covered the surface of Grimm's body actually swallowed him in reverse. After the abyss had swallowed Grimm's body, it turned into an abyss stone that was similar to an egg structure. If one were to stick to the surface of the stone, they could hear the crazy whispers and heartbeats. Han Dong could be sure of one thing. Grimm's change came from the enlightenment and breakthrough given by the ultimate fight. He immediately carried the abyss stone back to World S-01. The moment he returned to the clock tower, clouds of thick, eternal night fog gathered in the sky above the holy city, distributed in a whirlpool shape. It formed a temporary teleportation node that could reach the center of chaos. Such a strange phenomenon was obviously caused by Grimm. When Bop, who was sitting in the stargazing room, saw this scene, a sense of crisis arose spontaneously. He couldn't help but mutter, "Grimm, this monster, he actually had a major breakthrough," when Han Dong walked out of the clock tower with the abyss stone on his back. The suction force from the center of the fog pulled the abyss stone directly to the center of chaos. Han Dong also watched Grimm leave completely. When the fog had completely dispersed, he slowly lowered his head. Then he looked at the clock bearer not far away and handed over an item that was still preserved. "Clock bearer, this is a letter written by Mr. M himself. As long as you personally bring it to the Black Tower office, the loss of control assessment will be redone, and it won't be too strict. Once it passes, your personal information will be completely restored, including your identity as a world investigator." Due to the structure of his brain, the clock bearer did not have the ability to express his emotions. He could only express his gratitude in a very stiff manner. "Thank you. Also, Mr. Black and White wants you to go to the stargazing room. He and a distinguished guest named Bop are waiting for you there." "Huh? Teacher and Bop are together?" Han Dong brought Sally to the Night Academy at the fastest speed, stepped into the mystic domain of the attributes, and climbed up the Dark Moon Tower. In the stargazing room, Mr. Black and White and Bop were sitting in front of the sofa, laughing and joking. In their hands, they were holding a cocktail, Starfall, that Black and White personally made. "Nicholas, you've finally come out. I've been waiting for you for a few days. If it wasn't for teacher's direct request, I wouldn't have wasted my time." "Principal, why are you looking for me?" "I don't know the specifics. Teacher just personally asked me to bring you to the Void. Although I don't know what it is, since you want to go to the Void to meet teacher's body, it must be something very important. If you don't need a rest, just come with me directly." Chapter 1834. Even though he only slept for 3 hours in the circus, due to the mad laughter's breakthrough, Han Dong's current mental state was surprisingly good. As soon as he heard that it was an invitation from the Void, his thoughts became even more excited. Although Han Dong was able to use a certain amount of Void secret techniques, it was all from his own research and study. He had never truly stepped into the unique Void of World S-01. His concept of the Void also came from the words of others and the descriptions in books. In a brief history of the Void, there was a description: in the depths of the vast universe, in the seemingly disorderly arrangement of the laws of the stars, there is a door. A border door that transcends time and space. A hidden door that cannot be seen through by any perception. A universe gate that belongs to our world alone. Behind the door is the Void. The Void could be seen as the most special, most dangerous, and most mysterious forbidden area in World S-01. It was a mysterious domain that could only be traversed by those who mastered unique spatial techniques. Here, it was necessary to distinguish between the shattered dimension and the void. The shattered dimension existed outside of the world. Due to the world's membrane being torn, it was a crack that led to the outside world. The space outside of the world, because there was no truth to it, there was no order or framework to speak of. All conventional knowledge was a mess. If you were not careful, you would be completely torn apart in the shattered dimension or be crushed and absorbed by a spatial singularity. The void was a mysterious area within world S01. As for why this area was formed, perhaps only one person could give a definite answer. Any individual could head into the void without being torn apart or sucked into some sort of spatial vortex. What awaited them was an endless journey of being lost. Even some of the apprentices under the Void Dominator could not guarantee that they could casually walk through the void. They needed to follow fixed road signs, stable void crystals, and so on to ensure that they were walking on the correct path. To put it in simple terms, Feng Qiu had already made his decision. The void was equivalent to the advanced form of space. Individuals who mastered the void technique, such as Pope, could perform void jump even if they were in an area that was completely sealed off. And the result of all this, the result of transforming the void into an individual's ability, all came from a supreme individual. Pope's teacher, the founder and principal of Miskatonic University, the key holder of the Void Gate, the end of knowledge. Using Y.S. as a substitute, there was also a common name among Void apprentices, Teacher Yu. This existence's reputation was without a doubt the highest in the hybrid demon circle. Any seeker of knowledge, even a believer of the Old King, could receive a revelation from the void one day in the process of seeking knowledge. Any individual who showed excellent talent in the field of space, or who had a high affinity with the stars of the universe, could even receive an invitation letter from the void and find the mysterious door to the void according to the guide mark on it. Ever since he learned the void technique, Han Dong had always wanted to go to the void. Who would have thought that Bop would be his guide on his first trip to the void? Sure, let's go now. Can Sally come with us? That's not possible. Individuals without spatial talent would still get lost even with me leading the way. Sally hurriedly took a step back. The void is a death zone for me. Nicholas, you don't have to worry about me. I have to hurry back to the Black Forest and bring the modeling fluid Mr. M gave to my mother. Well, that's fine. After the tour, Mr. M had prepared 2 buckets of the original modeling fluid, and Han Dong was storing it in his brain. He wanted to deliver it himself. After all, he still wanted to soak in the goat mother's bathtub and have an emotional exchange between the two of them. Of course, the main purpose was still to rope in this supreme existence. Sally always put the matter of mother first. She filled the 2 buckets of the original fluid and prepared to go to the nearest teleportation point. Bob stared at the white liquid in the jar. His brain couldn't analyze its specific composition. Sally, don't worry. This should be a very important substance, right? Although the probability of something happening to you is relatively small, we can't rule out this risk. The stargazing room can lock onto the universe coordinates of the Black Forest. I'll help you build a one-way channel. With one of Sally's hairs as the connection medium, Bob drew a teleportation array under the astronomical telescope in the stargazing room. When the astronomical telescope was aimed at the star field where the Black Forest was located, the array was activated, and Sally arrived inside the Black Forest very steadily. At this moment, Han Dong suddenly asked, "Oh, right? The recruitment of talents in the void seems to be open to the entire universe. Mr. Black and White has very high attainments in astrology and astrology. Does he have the opportunity to come into contact with the void?" Unexpectedly, Mr. Black and White took out a special envelope with a void imprint from his pocket. "Mr. Bob has already applied for an invitation for me, and there's also a space guidance mark inside. Before I go to the void, I have to take care of a series of matters in the Holy City. Nicholas, you and Mr. Bob go ahead first. After all, the person you want to meet is a higher existence. At the side, Bop also said softly, Mr. Black and White is very talented. Perhaps it's because of his human identity, or perhaps it's because of some other reason, but he didn't receive a direct invitation from teacher. Let's go. We can't let teacher you wait too long. Han Dong smiled to himself. Of course, there was no need to mention Mr. Black and White's talent. Han Dong knew better than anyone else. However, this might not be the only reason why Bop praised him to his face. In the past few days, perhaps the two of them had a deeper conversation. However, there was one thing that Han Dong did not guess. In the past few days, Bop had not only stayed in the stargazing room, but he had also made a trip to the witch's swamp and other areas. He had almost obtained all of Han Dong's information without leaving out a single detail. Similarly, he used an astronomical telescope to locate him. Buzz! The next second, the two of them were already standing on the surface of a dark, barren planet. Even if Han Dong used his demon eye to look around, he could not see the so-called void gate at all. Where's the entrance? Just follow me. This is the star zone closest to the void. The gate is not fixed. It requires a certain amount of luck, experience, and intuition to find it. For a regular visitor to the void, this process would take from 1 year to several hundred years. However, with me leading the way, the time will be shortened by a lot. Han Dong did not say much and just followed. At the same time, he also observed a detail. The stars in Bop's brain showed a special arrangement. It had an effect similar to a compass, and it had a guiding function to search for the void. Nicholas, your spiritual power has improved a lot. Did you go on a fateful adventure similar to the Ladybug game during this period of time? No, I just took some time to watch a circus performance and had some inspiration. If you're free, Bop, I could take you with me next time. Circus? Let's talk about it later. They had not even talked for 2 sentences. Only a minute had passed. On the surface of the barren planet, about 10 kilometers away from the two of them, a door with an inverted triangle printed on it appeared out of thin air. Han Dong's feet had also sunk into the disgusting meat bubbles. His feet were about half the height of his calves, and he could intimately feel the sticky and squeezing feeling of the meat bubbles, as well as the thick juices flowing between his legs. However, Bop was different. His feet were firmly planted on the surface of the meat bubble, and there was no sign of him sinking into it. It's only so shallow. This should be the effect of your reading of A Brief History of the Void. Most newcomers will be completely submerged in the void, with only half of their heads exposed. In fact, many people will fall down uncontrollably without any traction. Were these meat bubbles? After seeing Han Dong's surprised expression, Bop explained with satisfaction. It's an alternative expression of space. Or rather, it's the result of space being expressed in a material form after being corrupted, distorted, and distorted. Whether it's these bubbles or the juices flowing between the cracks, they're all extremely pure space substances. It's impossible to see them in the real universe. Those who don't have the characteristics of the void will be completely lost in the meat bubbles once they come into contact with them. They seem to be moving forward in the passage, but in fact, they are moving through hyperspace without any pattern. When they come back to their senses, they may have already experienced several reincarnations, or even been annihilated and disappeared. I see. No wonder only S01 has void. Follow me closely. Compared to the crazy abyss you've been to, it's easier to get lost here. I don't want to waste time looking for you everywhere. As soon as he finished speaking, Han Dong placed one hand on Bop's shoulder. The latter was naturally very repulsed. Just as he was about to break free from this action, Bop unexpectedly found that Han Dong, whose calves were stuck in the bubbles, was slowly floating up until only the soles of his feet were submerged in the bubbles. At this time, Han Dong's skin also showed a starry state. Are you imitating me? Well, it should be more convenient this way. If I get lost, I should be able to walk back. Hurry up. There's still a long way to go to see teacher. I've already confirmed my mental state with you before we set off. Focus the whole time. Podgy, as he followed Bob forward, he stepped on the meat bubbles and made a rather strange sound. After a while, Han Dong noticed that a certain meat bubble was emitting white light. What's this glowing bubble? Don't touch it. Glowing means activated. These meat bubbles are in an activated state and will form an inherent space with a limited duration inside. It requires the use of professional detection equipment to determine the stability, safety, and applicability of the internal space. Of course, I can directly detect it, but we need a meat teacher now, so don't waste time here. After walking for a short distance, there were more and more glowing meat bubbles. Some were on the surface, and some were squeezed in the deeper layers. There were even some that were emitting different colors. Why are there blue and red colors? Are there any differences between the different colors? Bop was actually very happy to explain to Han Dong. There was a faint feeling that he could suppress Han Dong. The most common color is white. It means that it has been activated, but it has not been developed. If there is a color, it means that a void creature has already conducted a detection. Blue color means that it has a long duration and is stable. Green color means that it has a short duration and is stable. Red color means that it is not stable and is not recommended to enter. There is also a type of black color, which means that the space is currently being used by a void creature. Please do not disturb. Oh, speaking of which, Bop, you were born here. Did you spend your childhood here as well? I don't have any memories of how I was born. I was already here when I had the ability to recognize things. Not only during my childhood, I stayed here all the way until I became an adult. There are too many impurities in the outside world. It's still pure inside here. Speaking of which, do you usually study in these bubbles? Or is there a special classroom or training area? You really have a lot of questions. There is no fixed learning area in the void. After the apprentices here learned how to walk, the thing they did the most was to search for bubbles. The bubbles that were spread all over the void would be activated at irregular times and completely randomly. There was nothing to worry about. Occasionally, a rare bubble would appear. The inside would form a hyperspace that was suitable for void training. It might even form a void room that contains secrets. Don't ask anymore. We are currently deep in the void. I need to focus on finding the way. Okay, as the concept of time was blurred here after an unknown amount of time, the void passage slowly began to widen. Splat! They stepped into the hemispherical, super-large area. The bubbles that formed the circular hall were emitting a pure white luster. They were in an activated state. In the center of the area, in the middle of the throne that was surrounded by endless meat bubbles, sat a man whose head could reflect the entire universe. Teacher, Nicholas is here. Chapter 1836. Although Han Dong had already seen this existence at the London Game Award ceremony, but in the depths of the void between the halls, when he saw this great existence sitting between the bubble thrones, his heart was still incomparably shocked. Out of courtesy, Han Dong naturally would not use the demon eye to spy on him. The first thing he did was to reveal his faceless state. As the tentacles fluttered behind his head, he knelt on one knee in front of the void dominus. Bop also revealed his true form. Even if he flipped through the hybrid demon encyclopedia, he could not find the corresponding race. His starry head did not change at all, but a large number of sparkling and translucent tentacles spread out from his back, and his skin became transparent. Every organ structure was unique, similar to a certain star field in the universe. It seemed that every part could be used as a separate unit of calculation, and through the interaction between the forms and the body, various complex information calculations were completed. However, the moment he saw Teacher Yu, all the calculations in Bop's body stopped, only showing the highest respect. As for the great existence between the bubble thrones, he still maintained his bartender image in the London game room, or rather, the image that everyone who is reading the book can barely read. There are no pleasantries or polite words. Straight to the point. Nicholas, you should have brought very important information from the Black Tower, information about the containment facility. Yes, The letter B from the Black Tower has already explained to me about the temporary cooperation, and you have also spread the basic information of the out-of-control outbreak in many important areas such as the University of Me, the Abyss of Chaos, and other important areas in advance. Before you further send more direct investigation information to the world, you need to let me see these things first. Later, I will perform a truth peek into your brain memory. Although it will not cause any negative effects to you, it will inevitably pry into some private information. As compensation, I will give you some gifts later. No problem. Han Dong originally planned to use the platform of the University of Me to spread the details of BC to the world. If the principal could personally know and convey the message, the effect would be better, and the entire S01 world would be able to sound the alarm in advance and make the best response measures. However, before I spy on you, I would like to hear your opinion. In this investigation of the Black Tower, do you think it's necessary for us to establish a temporary cooperation with the Black Tower? Do we need to alert the entire universe to the arrival of invaders? The Void Ruler's question clearly had another meaning. He seemed to want to see what Han Dong's vision was like. It is necessary. Whether it was from the perspective of the future development of World S01, stability, or the long term, it was necessary. First of all, let's not talk about the extent to which the loss of control can spread and how much impact it will have on us. If we can use this opportunity to restore the connection between S01 and the Black Tower, through assisting the Black Tower, we can achieve a special interaction mode that will allow us to obtain more priority rights, which will greatly promote the development of the world. Regardless of whether it was the improvement and enlightenment brought about by the Ladybug games, my experience in bringing Clint and Sally to the Fight Club was a good example of this. I can roughly guess that you should also be inclined to restore the connection between the two sides. After all, the London game was single-handedly promoted by you. The essence of the game is to lay the foundation for the current cooperation and obtain more cooperation benefits through victory. The Void Ruler nodded and confirmed Han Dong's statement. He continued to ask, Then if we only consider the loss of control, do you think it's necessary to cooperate? I still don't have a comprehensive understanding of the overall strength of the old kings. However, based on what I saw at the deepest level of the Black Tower's control headquarters, I think it's necessary. If we don't cooperate with the Black Tower to stop the development of the loss of control, when the final erosion comes to us, it will bring about quite serious consequences. Let me see what you've experienced. There was no process or thought feedback. Han Dong, who was originally standing at the entrance of the bubble hall, floated to the front of the throne in the next second. One of the fingers touched Han Dong's forehead. He directly browsed through Han Dong's detailed experience in C in first-person mode. In the meantime, Bop also took a few curious glances. It's rare to see teacher so serious. I don't know what Nicholas experienced in the Black Tower to actually make teacher treat him with such an attitude. When there's a chance, I'll ask this guy in private through an equivalent exchange. At this moment, the bubble hall actually came alive. The bubbles began to rub and squeeze against each other, and the light release became even more dazzling. Such a change could only come from Teacher Yu. It was obvious that he had spied on something. Not long after, Teacher Yu's face actually tore open with an opening that looked like a crack. Ha ha ha! An extremely rare laughter echoed in the bubble hall. Teacher actually laughed. What the hell? Bob's curiosity was piqued. He couldn't imagine what could make Teacher Yu laugh. This kind of behavior probably wouldn't be seen even once in hundreds of years. At the same time, the peek into Teacher Yu's memories ended. Teacher Yu had a satisfied expression on his face. I didn't expect that the guy from the Black Tower would be so resourceful. He took the initiative to let you spy on the situation in the deepest part. If there are really so many superior, as well as props like the Rubik's Cube, we really need to take it seriously. If we don't stop them in advance and let them invade and assimilate the myriad worlds, it will be quite difficult in the end. In addition, your performance in the Black Tower's high-level meeting was quite interesting. Ha ha ha. How interesting. Han Dong could only smile awkwardly. Obviously, his impromptu idea of imitating the Grey Walker in the highest will have been spied on. In the near future, I will personally launch a Sharphorn conference. All the old Wangdu who hold the land deed will participate. The main purpose of the conference is to vote on whether to establish temporary cooperation with the Black Tower. At that time, this memory of yours will be shown to everyone in the conference through the sharing device. Okay, I originally wanted you to participate in the conference. However, you should have other things to do. Collecting the Book of Necromancy isn't something that can be done easily. I hope that you can collect at least 50% of the remnant pages before you lose control. As for the gift I just mentioned, I will give you some clues and guidance on the remnant pages. In addition, Bop will embark on a journey with you to find the Book of Necromancy. Some of the remnant pages have already been sealed or stored in some ancient ruins. With Bop's knowledge, you can speed up the decryption and save a lot of time. As for how to distribute the results of the journey, it's up to you. Teacher you. Bop stood up excitedly when he heard that he was going to help Han Dong find the remnant pages of the necromancy. He also had many things to do. However, he remembered that he couldn't reject his teacher's arrangements, so he could only swallow his words. Bop could only stare at Han Dong, who was smiling with satisfaction, with an expression of extreme disgust. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.